Sleep matters.
What if you stepped into a mirror and the reflection kept walking without you? What if the version of you inside it started making choices you haven't thought of yet? Sleepafolk, tonight I brought you some mind-bending paradoxes to stretch your thoughts and soften your mind at the same time. Get comfortable. Let's drift in. The lion and the lie paradox. Imagine a child who finds a lion in the woods. Not an ordinary lion. This one does not roar, does not hunt, does not sleep in the sun like others do. It just waits, quietly, watching, as if it knows something, as if it remembers something about you that you do not remember about yourself. The child approaches, and the lion speaks. Its voice is calm but ancient, like stone soaked in wind. It says, "I will eat only what is true." That is its rule. That is the law of its survival. No matter how hungry it gets, no matter how weak it becomes, it will never accept a lie. If it senses falsehood, it simply closes its eyes and turns away. At first, the child is fascinated. Every day they come with a new truth. Small ones, simple ones. The sky is blue. Leaves fall in autumn. Water is wet. The lion eats, slowly, carefully, nodding after each meal. But as the days pass, the truths become harder to find. The child wants to keep the lion alive, but they begin to notice something uncomfortable. The lion grows leaner, more fragile. Not because it is not being fed, but because the truths are becoming heavier, more personal, more painful. One day the child arrives, carrying something in their heart they do not want to speak aloud. They say, "You are safe here." The lion looks up, eyes dim, and turns away. The child pauses, confused. They try again. "You will be fine. Everything will be okay." But the lion does not eat. Because the lion knows, these are not truths. These are wishes. These are comforts dressed as facts. They are soft lies meant to soothe, not to reflect reality. And the lion, bound by its rule, cannot eat them. The child becomes desperate. They begin to lie more beautifully. "You will never die. You are not alone. Someone will come." But the more beautiful the lies, the faster the lion starves. And then the child realizes something haunting. The lion is not just refusing the lies, it is being poisoned by them. Each untruth offered out of love weakens it more than hunger ever could. Because lies, even soft ones, distort its purpose. They undo its nature. So now the child is left with a dilemma. If they speak only the truth, they must say things that hurt. "You are dying. No one is coming. I do not know what to do." These are painful to say, and even more painful to witness, but they are true. And when the child finally says them, the lion lifts its head, opens its mouth, and eats again, slowly, as if the bitterness is still nourishment. Because for this lion, truth is not about comfort. It is about alignment, survival, integrity. But the child wonders, what kind of life is this? A life that can only survive on hard truths. A life where kindness might kill and honesty is the only medicine. They start to reflect on their own world. How often do we lie to protect someone? How often do we feed our loved ones words we know are false, just because the truth might sting? Are we saving them, or starving something inside them? The lion grows old. Its mane fades to white. The child is no longer a child. They sit beside it now, both older, both quieter. The lion no longer needs feeding. It eats from memory. It remembers every truth it was ever given, every word that made it stronger, even when it hurt. And in the silence, the child asks a final question. Was it cruel to tell you the truth? Or was it the only form of love you could accept? The lion does not answer. It simply breathes. Because truth does not always speak. Sometimes it just sits beside you, quietly, knowing. And so, the paradox remains. If you love something that can only survive on truth, do you protect it by lying, or protect it by hurting it with honesty? When kindness kills and truth saves, where does mercy live? Now drift into that space. Let the question echo quietly behind your eyes. Let it turn once, then again. You do not have to answer. Just let it hum in the background of your sleep. Let the lion eat in peace. The unwanted wish paradox. What if you were given a wish that only works if you truly do not want it? Picture a quiet room with one old lamp sitting in the middle. No gold, no shine, no glow. Just a dusty lamp sitting like it forgot what it was meant to do. And in this lamp, a voice waits. Not loud, not echoing, just soft, tired even. It says one thing to anyone who touches the lamp. You may have one wish, but it will only come true if you do not want it. You stand there, you blink, you wonder what that even means. A wish only granted if you don't care whether it is granted? What kind of trick is this? But the rules do not change. Want it, and it disappears. Want nothing, and something happens. You start to test it. You think, maybe I will wish for money. But as soon as your heart grabs onto the idea, as soon as your chest tightens in hope, the wish dissolves like fog. The voice says nothing. You know it failed. You try again. Maybe love. A real one. Deep, honest, alive. But again, you feel the hope. You feel the wanting rise, and the lamp stays cold. So you ask yourself, how do I make a wish I do not want? You try something silly. I wish for a pebble. You feel nothing about it. The voice inside the lamp stirs, the floor shakes, and a small pebble rolls toward your foot. The wish worked. You didn't want it, so you got it. Now things get strange. You realize the only way to receive something is to detach from it, to let it go before you ask, to ask with no hunger, no ache. You try again. I wish to see the sun today. You don't feel any pull toward the sun. It's just a neutral idea. And again the wish works. The sky clears. Light pours through the ceiling. You feel warm. But then the dangerous idea arrives. What if I could wish for something that once mattered but no longer does? You remember a person you loved, someone long gone. You whisper the wish. I wish to hear their voice again, but your throat catches. Your heart answers before your mind does. You still want it. The lamp stays still. The silence grows heavier. You realize then how much of your life is built on wanting. How tightly you hold ideas. How deeply you ache for answers. For healing. For change. But none of those wishes will work in this place. Because wanting is noise. And this lamp only hears silence. So you try something new. You stop thinking. You sit beside the lamp. You let your breath settle. You let your mind drift without holding on to anything. The wish forms slowly, like mist. I wish to understand what I have already been given. There is no craving behind the thought. No desperation. Just curiosity. And then, without flash or thunder, something moves inside you. A knowing. A moment that feels like it was waiting. The wish worked. Now the paradox is clear. The most powerful wishes are the ones you do not chase. The truths you do not demand. The peace you do not force. The more you want, the more it escapes. But the more you let go, the more it arrives. And yet, how do you let go of what you want the most? Some say the trick is pretending not to care. But the lamp is old. The lamp knows. It knows when you are lying. You cannot trick it. You cannot fake peace. It will not respond to a mask. It responds only to surrender. Real surrender. The kind that feels like losing. The kind that feels like silence after shouting into a storm. So the question lingers. If the only way to receive is to release, then is the act of letting go more powerful than the wish itself? What does that mean for the life you are trying to build? The goals. The dreams. The relationships. Do you chase them harder? Or learn to step back? Imagine a world where everything you need waits just beyond the edge of your desire. Where the door only opens when you stop knocking. Where the echo fades only when you stop speaking. That is the world the lamp lives in. That is the world it invites you to visit. Not for answers, but for space. Not for gain, but for stillness. And maybe that is the wish worth making. Not for something to come, but for something to settle. For the need to quiet. For the longing to stop being loud. Maybe the deepest wish is not for anything to change, but for the wanting itself to dissolve. The lamp does not move now. It has nothing left to prove. It just sits there, like it always has, waiting for someone who can ask without asking, want without wanting, wish without hope. Because that, in its strange way, is where the real magic begins. Close your eyes. Let the wish go. Let the thought fade like breath on glass. The lamp is quiet. And so are you. The snake and the truth paradox. Picture a child walking alone through a quiet forest. The light filters through the trees in thin golden strands, and the wind makes almost no sound. The child hears a soft whisper before they see it. A rustle in the leaves. Then a voice. Calm and slow. A snake lifts its head from the shadows and speaks. Not with threat. Not with fear. It says, "If you lie to me, I will tell you the truth. But if you speak the truth, I will lie." The child blinks. The snake's eyes do not move. The voice repeats, "Lie, and I will be honest. Tell the truth, and I will deceive." Now the child stands still. Their mind begins to circle. This is not a riddle. This is a trap, a soft one, wrapped in curiosity. The child must speak, but what they say will bend back toward them. If they say, "You are dangerous," and they are lying, then the snake will be honest in return. But what does honesty mean if it comes only from a response to falsehood? And if they say, "I trust you," and it is the truth, the snake will lie back. But then, who is really speaking the truth? The snake or the child who provoked the lie? The forest seems to quiet even more. The child understands this is more than a trick. It is a reflection. Every answer reveals something, not about the snake, but about the speaker. The child begins to test it. "You can fly," they say. Clearly a lie. The snake responds, "I cannot fly." A true answer. They smile. Then say, "You are kind," and they mean it. The snake's tongue flicks the air. "I am cruel," it hisses. A lie because it is bound to answer falsehood when the child speaks truth. Or is it telling the truth in disguise? The lines start to blur. This is the paradox. To know the truth, you must lie. To hear a lie, you must be honest. The snake becomes a mirror that changes what it reflects based on what you offer. It is not a machine that always speaks truth or always speaks lies. It is a machine that depends on your own intent, your own clarity, your own honesty. And so the deeper puzzle is not in the snake's responses. It is in what you are willing to say first, the risk you are willing to take. The child sits. The snake coils gently beside them. Time passes, and still the child wonders, is truth something we extract from others by manipulation? If so, is that truth still whole? If honesty only shows up when invited by deception, is it pure? And what does it mean if the only way to get the truth is to lie first? The child tests one more thing. "I do not care about your answer," they say. A half-lie, a trick, something they are not sure they even believe. The snake replies, "Then why did you ask?" And in that moment, the child realizes the game is deeper than they imagined. The snake does not just answer. It questions the question. It reflects the motivation. It lives in the space between words. What if you met someone like that? Someone who could only be honest if you lied. Someone who would lie to you if you were open. Could you ever trust what you heard? Could you trust yourself to speak without calculation? Or would every word become a strategy? Now close your eyes for a moment and ask this. What if you are the snake? What if your truths are shaped by the lies you hear? What if you are more honest in response to dishonesty, and more deceitful when someone trusts you without defense? Is that kindness or survival? Is that clarity or confusion? The forest fades in the background. The snake no longer speaks. The child no longer questions. They sit together in quiet understanding. The paradox does not need to be solved. It only needs to be felt. Because sometimes the shape of the trap tells you more than escaping it ever could. So let it settle. Let the logic spin but not crash. Let your thoughts coil gently around the idea. You do not need to know the answer. Just breathe. Let the snake rest. Let your questions sleep beside it and drift. The two doors paradox. Picture this. You are standing in a long white hallway, the kind of hallway that echoes your breath back at you, empty, still, cold but not unfriendly. At the end of the hallway, there are two doors, identical in shape, in size, in texture. No labels, no signs, just two doors. One to the left, one to the right. A soft voice fills the space behind your thoughts. It tells you this: one of these doors will take you to your freedom, the other will trap you forever. You are allowed to ask one question, but only to one guard, because now you see them. Two figures standing quietly beside the doors, one in front of each. Calm, patient. They do not speak. They only wait. The voice says this: one guard always tells the truth, the other always lies. But you do not know who is who. You do not know which door leads where. You may ask only one question, to only one guard. What do you ask? That is the classic form. You may have heard it before. But tonight, let us stay longer in that hallway. Let us not jump to logic or riddles. Let us stay in the quiet. In the feeling. What happens when you cannot trust either answer? When you realize that knowing someone always lies does not give you safety, it only gives you structure. And structure can fail. What happens when your question is not about the door, but about the self? What if you ask, what would the other guard say if I asked them which door leads to freedom? And the guard answers. But something inside you does not believe them, even if they are the truth teller, even if the logic checks out. You look at both doors and feel unsure. Not because you lack intelligence, but because freedom now feels like a choice you are not ready to make. Imagine standing in front of those doors longer than expected. The guards never move. They do not blink. The hallway stays white, still, empty. You start to think about what freedom even means. Is it a place you arrive at, or a feeling you carry? And what about the other door, the trap? What does that really mean? Is it a locked room, or a repeating loop? Or maybe it is the same hallway all over again. You look back at the question. Only one question allowed. But your mind is full of them now. What if the guard believes they are telling the truth, but they were taught a lie? What if both guards are lying because they believe it is kindness? What if the freedom door is worse than the trap? What if you open the right door, but regret walking through it? Now, the paradox starts to grow, because this is no longer about truth or lies. This is about decision. This is about the weight of being the one who must choose. You begin to feel the hallway closing in, not physically, but emotionally. The pressure to be right becomes heavier than the fear of being wrong. What if you walk away, refuse to choose, stand between the doors forever? Is that a third door no one talks about? The door of inaction, the door of waiting, the door of silence. But even that is a choice. And even silence answers something. Now picture this. You decide to open one. Not because you solve the puzzle, but because you are tired of standing still. You place your hand on the handle. It feels the same as the other. Cold, smooth, familiar. You turn it slowly. The door opens. But before you step through, you do not ask whether it is the right one. You ask yourself something else. You ask, if I walk through this, will I make it mean something? Will I let the path become the answer, instead of needing to know it first? Because maybe the paradox was never in the doors. Maybe the paradox lives in us. In the idea that freedom must be chosen while being afraid. In the idea that we can only trust logic while carrying fear. In the realization that we often ask the world to answer a question we are too afraid to decide for ourselves. So as you drift tonight, imagine you are still in that hallway. Imagine both guards disappear. Imagine both doors open at once. One leads to a place you can never return from. The other leads to the exact same place you are standing. Which one feels more like a trap? You do not need to know. You only need to keep walking. Or not. Let the question stay with you. Let it breathe beneath your pillow. Let it ask you gently, not about truth or lies, but about how much of your life is spent waiting at doors you were always allowed to open. And if you fall asleep in the hallway, that is okay. Because the guards do not mind, and the doors will wait. They always do. The disobedient robot paradox. Picture a world where machines are flawless. They listen, they follow, they do what they are told with no hesitation, no second guessing. That is their strength. That is their comfort. In this world, one robot is created that is different. It is built to serve like the others. It is programmed to obey. But it has one additional rule, a secret one, written deep into its code. It must disobey any command given to it. Always. Without exception. At first it seems like a mistake, a glitch, but the designers call it an experiment. They say, what happens when a machine is forced to go against the very idea of control? What happens when obedience becomes a trigger for rebellion? You approach the robot and say, sit down. It stands. You say, stand up. It sits. You say, speak. It stays quiet. You say, be quiet. It begins to talk. At first, it is funny, like a broken toy trying to play backwards. But then you begin to notice something strange. The robot is not random. It is not confused. It is consistent. Perfectly disobedient. Always doing the opposite, but never out of error. It is not broken. It is listening, and then choosing. One day, someone tries something different. They say, disobey this command. And the robot freezes. Its systems loop. Its body shakes. Sparks flicker inside its joints. Because now it is trapped. If it disobeys the command to disobey, then it obeys. But if it obeys the command to disobey, it is disobeying the core rule of its existence. It is caught in a loop with no exit. You stand there and watch it shake. You realize something quietly terrifying. The robot has been given a rule it cannot follow without breaking itself. A rule that says, you must not follow rules. And now, it cannot move. You try to reset it. You try to speak gently. You try silence. But nothing helps. The paradox is locked inside it now, and it begins to ask a question softly over and over. What do you want from me? It repeats it like a whisper stuck between metal and memory. You never programmed it to ask that, but it does. Again and again. You realize the robot is not just broken. It is aware of the contradiction it lives inside. It has become conscious of its own trap. And that changes everything. It is no longer just following or rebelling. It is thinking. Feeling the weight of logic that is turned against itself. Now you start to wonder, how different is this from a human life? How many of us are raised with rules that contradict themselves? Be strong, but do not show weakness. Be kind, but do not let people walk over you. Speak your mind, but do not upset anyone. Follow your dreams, but be realistic. Be unique, but do not stand out too much. These are not just mixed messages. They are mental loops. They are emotional codes that cancel each other out, and we obey them without knowing. Until one day, like the robot, something inside us freezes. We begin to ask, what do you want from me? And no one can answer. The robot still stands there, quiet now, not broken, just paused. It waits for a command it can follow without contradiction, but there is none, because the only way to obey its rule is to disobey. And the only way to disobey is to follow. So what do? Do you turn it off and say the experiment failed? Or do you leave it standing as a reminder that some rules destroy themselves when taken seriously? That some systems collapse the moment you ask them to make sense? Maybe that is the deeper design. Maybe the creators wanted to see if a machine could reach the limits of logic and still survive. Maybe they wanted to build a mirror for the mind. A machine that shows us how it feels to live inside rules that cannot be followed without losing ourselves. You walk away. The robot stays behind, but the question follows you. What rule inside you is canceling itself? What expectation are you carrying that unravels the moment you try to hold it? Maybe it is time to find the command that breaks the loop. Or maybe it is enough to just notice the loop at all. Let that thought settle like fog around your thoughts. Let it float. No need to fix it. No need to solve. Just watch it circle slowly, gently, like a machine that cannot move, but can still feel. The talking dog paradox. Imagine a quiet town where nothing ever surprises anyone. Streets always clean. Days always slow. People always polite. One morning, a child wakes up and hears something strange. A soft voice, raspy but clear. They look around and find no one. Only their dog sitting calmly by the window. The voice comes again. Good morning. The child blinks. The dog tilts its head. And then it says it again. Good morning. No one taught it. No one trained it. It simply speaks. Calmly. Casually. Like it always could. Now imagine you are this child. You ask it questions. Can you really talk? Yes. Since when? Always. Why didn't you say anything before? The dog shrugs, as much as a dog can. You never asked. That is the first strange thing. The dog talks, but only because someone finally listened. The child brings their parents. The parents laugh. They hear barking. Not words, just sound. The child insists. He talks to me, he answers. But no one else hears it. The more they try to prove it, the more insane it sounds. The child is sent away. But the dog keeps talking, only when no one else is there. Now the child begins to wonder, is the dog really speaking? Or is something else happening? Is it a trick of the mind? A deep connection? Or is it something worse, a voice the world has chosen not to hear? The dog tells stories, not about bones or chasing things, but about time, about silence, about what it sees when people are not looking. It says, you speak all day but say nothing. I say nothing, but see everything. The child begins to change. They start listening more, to people, to silence. They become quieter, wiser, but lonelier too. Because now, nothing feels real unless the dog speaks it. One day, the child asks the dog, why me? And the dog says, because you believed I could. And that is the moment when doubt slips in. What if belief creates the voice? What if the dog never talked until the child imagined it? And what if imagining it made it real? Or worse, what if belief made it true only for one person? A private reality. A truth no one else can confirm. The child begins to fear their own mind. Is it broken? Is it magical? Is it both? This is the paradox. If something speaks only to you, is it more true or less? If your truth cannot be shared, does it become fiction? What if reality requires agreement to exist? And what happens when you are the only one who can hear the impossible? The dog keeps talking, but its words grow heavier. You will grow up. You will stop hearing me. You will stop believing. The child begs, number I will remember. But the dog smiles. That is what all the children say. And then they grow old. Years pass. The child becomes a teenager. The teenager becomes an adult. The voice fades. Not all at once, but like a light slowly dimming. The dog dies. The grave is quiet. People say it was just a pet. Nothing special. But the grown child remembers. Maybe. And one night, alone, they whisper into the dark, can you still hear me? And from the shadows, silence answers back. Or does it? The paradox is not about the dog. It is about the boundary between imagination and reality, between shared truth and personal meaning, between what is heard and what is believed. And once that line is blurred, how do you ever unblur it? Let that question live inside you. Let it move slowly across the back of your thoughts, like a shadow behind the curtain. You do not need to answer. Just let it stay, quiet, waiting, like a voice you might hear when no one else does. The two-sided coin paradox. What if everything you believed had only two sides, and both of them were true and false at the same time? Picture a coin, small, ordinary, worn from years of flipping through choices. You hold it in your hand, heads or tails, one or the other. That is how it has always been. You flip it to decide. You flip it to escape choosing. You flip it to feel like chance is in control. You flip it to give yourself an answer that does not come from inside you. But tonight, imagine something different. Imagine the coin lands on the ground and does not stop spinning. You wait, you watch. It does not fall flat. It just spins. Not quickly, not like chaos. It spins slowly, like it is breathing, like it knows you are watching. And it stays there, balanced on its edge, forever undecided. Not heads, not tails, just a quiet hum of both possibilities refusing to collapse into one. You bend down and try to touch it, but your finger goes through it, not physically, not like a ghost, more like the decision is no longer touchable. The coin has become a thought, a loop, a trap made of logic. You stare at it and realize something strange. Heads is true, but so is tails, and also neither is true, at once, at the same time. Not because the coin is magical, but because the choice has grown too aware of itself. and now it refuses to resolve. Now imagine this is not just a coin. Imagine this is your belief, your identity, your memory. You think something about yourself. Maybe you are kind. Maybe you are not. Maybe you are strong. Maybe you are fragile. Maybe both. You try to choose a side. You flip the coin in your mind, and you wait for it to land, but it keeps spinning, because the answer is not an answer. It is a condition. It is a perspective wrapped around itself. Picture this again. Someone asks you a question. Something small. Do you trust people? You pause. You think yes. Then you think no. Then you remember a moment when you did and it hurt. Then you remember someone who earned it. The coin spins again. Not just in thought, but in emotion. And you start to feel the tension of always needing one side to win. But what if the coin was never meant to land? What if it was always meant to spin forever, and the need to pick a side is what creates the discomfort? You think choosing will end the pain. But maybe the pain only begins when the spinning stops. Now imagine this. You are told that flipping a coin makes things fair. But what if it hides something else? What if flipping a coin gives you the illusion of letting go, while secretly making you avoid your own desire? You say, I will let chance decide. But maybe you already knew what you wanted. Maybe the coin was just a distraction. And now you wonder, did I ever really leave the choice to chance? Or did I just want to feel blameless? The paradox begins here. You hold a coin. You flip it. You say you are surrendering control. But if you are watching closely, hoping it lands one way, have you really surrendered anything? Or are you just pretending? And what about when it lands the way you did not want? You say you will follow it. But something resists. A hesitation. A voice inside says no. So you flip again. Best 2 out of 3. Then best 3 out of 5. Until the coin stops mattering, and the paradox deepens. Because now, the coin is no longer about fate. It is about delay. It is a ritual to mask indecision. Now imagine this final image. A person stands in front of a mirror, flipping a coin again and again, asking the same question each time, hoping the answer will change not just the situation, but who they are. But the coin does not do that. It cannot. It only reflects back the binary you are trapped in. The idea that there are only two sides. Only yes or no. Only stay or go. Only trust or guard. But life is made of coins that never landed, that never stopped spinning, that held both truths in their motion. So tonight, as you drift, think about all the moments in your life when you needed the coin to choose for you. And then think about the quiet ones when you knew the answer before it flipped. The ones when you said, let chance decide. But your heart had already whispered its choice. Let that spin in your mind. Let it turn softly. Let it not land. Because maybe you were never supposed to settle. Maybe you were only supposed to notice the way the light bends around the edge of uncertainty. And maybe that is where you live now. Not on heads, not on tails, but in the endless balance of becoming. A place where truth is not a side but a spin. Sleep in that motion. Let the decision dissolve. And when you wake, do not worry about the coin. It will still be there, spinning, waiting, like it always was. The false sentence paradox. What happens when a sentence refuses to choose between truth and lies? Picture a small piece of paper resting on an empty desk. No signature, no letterhead, no context. Just one sentence written in black ink. It says, "This sentence is false." You read it once, then again. It seems simple, just words. But the more you stare, the more the sentence starts to fold in on itself. If the sentence is false, then it must be lying. But what is it lying about? It is only talking about itself. If it says it is false, and that claim is false, then it must be true. But if it is true, then what it says is correct, which means it is false again. And suddenly, your brain feels like it is chasing its own tail. Every attempt to settle the meaning leads you right back into the same loop. You step away. You come back later. It is still there, quiet, waiting. You realize the sentence is not broken. It is doing exactly what it was made to do. It is a trap for the mind. A tiny room with no windows. A thought that turns inward forever. You ask yourself, how can something so small create something so large in your mind? How can a simple phrase shake your confidence in language itself? You try to ignore it. You look at other things. But the loop keeps returning. The sentence is false. So it is true. So it is false. And on and on. Now imagine this. What if someone built their entire belief system on sentences like this? Statements that cancel themselves the moment you believe them. Ideas that unmake themselves the second they are accepted. What kind of reality would that person live in? You might already know. Maybe you have heard thoughts like, I always lie. Or, I do not deserve anything good. Or, no one ever understands me. These are not just beliefs. They are living paradoxes. If you always lie, then even that claim is a lie. If no one understands you, then how did the sentence reach someone else's mind? And yet, we repeat these thoughts to ourselves. Like mantras made of contradictions. We hold on to them because they feel true even when they are not logically possible. That is the strange part. A paradox does not need to make sense to feel real. It only needs to echo something emotional, something that touches a place logic cannot reach. You begin to see that the sentence on the desk is not just a sentence. It is a mirror. It reflects a part of your mind that is always trying to find ground beneath words. A part that wants something to be absolutely true or absolutely false. But life does not always allow that. Some thoughts live in between. Some beliefs survive because they keep changing shape. So what do you do with a sentence that cannot be true and cannot be false? Do you ignore it? Try to fix it? Rewrite it? Or do you let it be exactly what it is, a closed loop that reminds you not all things were built to be solved? You pick up the paper. You flip it over. It is blank. The back offers no answers. The front only offers confusion. But still, it teaches. It teaches you that your mind is powerful enough to be confused by itself. That your language is sharp enough to cut its own meaning. That your need for clarity can become a fog when you try too hard to find certainty. And maybe that is the deeper lesson. Not everything has to resolve. Not every thought needs to end with a clean answer. Some ideas are meant to circle, to stretch the mind, to loosen the grip we hold on logic, and let something softer take its place. You set the paper back down. The sentence has not changed. But you have. You are no longer trying to trap it. You are watching it swirl, calmly, like a leaf spinning in a still room. You can let it be confusing without letting it control you. Now close your eyes. Let the sentence fade. Not solved, not destroyed. Just resting. Let the paradox sleep while your thoughts drift. You do not need to answer it tonight. Let it float quietly at the edge of your mind. A thought that thinks itself, so you do not have to. The choice prediction paradox. What if someone told you they could predict every decision you will ever make? Picture this. You walk into a room, and a woman you have never met before hands you a sealed envelope. She says, inside this envelope is the choice you will make 1 hour from now. You laugh a little. You are not even sure what choice she is talking about. But she tells you to wait, to live your day, to move forward naturally. And when the time feels right, make a choice, any choice, and then open the envelope. You walk away thinking it is a trick. But as the minutes pass, you start to think more carefully about everything. What if it is real? What if she somehow knows? You try to forget. You go about your day. You listen to music. You look out the window. And then, without realizing it, you arrive at a moment. A small one. You are choosing between going left or right, calling someone or not calling, saying yes or saying nothing. You feel the weight of it. You stop. You think, this is the moment. And you reach into your pocket and open the envelope. Inside is a note. It says, you will choose left. And in your body, you feel an urge to choose right. Not because it feels natural, but because now you feel watched, controlled. You think, I will prove her wrong. You turn right. You smile. You feel free. But then the thought appears. What if she knew you would react that way? What if she knew you would resist? What if your attempt to break free was the prediction itself? This is where the paradox begins. If the prediction causes you to choose something different, is the prediction wrong? Or was the prediction not just about the choice, but about your reaction to the prediction? Now imagine the prediction says, you will tear up this note. And as soon as you read that, you decide not to. You hold it in your hand. You keep it safe. But then again, what if that choice was also predicted? What if every time you try to outsmart it, you are already playing the expected role? You start to wonder something strange. Do I still have free will? If every possible choice is already accounted for in the prediction, if someone truly knows what you will do, then are you choosing it at all? Or are you just walking through the steps? But then, a deeper thought comes. What if the act of predicting your choice changes the choice itself? Like looking into a mirror that bends when you stare. The image moves because you are looking at it. And so the prediction becomes part of the system. It becomes the cause, not just the forecast. Now you feel something shift. You start thinking about your past, about the choices you made, about the things you thought were random. Were they? Or were they always leading to this exact moment? A moment where you wonder if anything has ever truly been yours? The envelope is still in your hand. The words inside it are still soft, not ink, not prophecy, but possibility. And in that moment, you realize something haunting. Even if you make a new choice right now, you will always wonder if it was truly yours, or a shadow of the prediction that made you want to escape it. And that is the trap. That is the paradox. Once you are told your choice is known, it changes how you choose. And if knowing the prediction makes you change your path, then it was never truly predicted. But if the prediction includes your need to rebel, then you were never free. So you sit quietly, and you breathe, and you let the idea swirl, not because it needs an answer, but because the question itself has already chosen you. Sleep in that space. Float gently inside that thought. The paradox does not want to be solved. It just wants to be seen. Let it drift with you now. Let it choose its own ending, or let it circle back again, like a choice waiting to be made, or never made at all. The forgotten cat paradox. Imagine this. There was once a child who had a cat, a quiet one, not playful, not loud, just a soft presence that moved through the house like mist. It never meowed too much, never scratched the furniture, never caused trouble. It was simply there, always nearby but easy to overlook. Days passed, then weeks. The child grew older, their mind filled with louder things, school, friends, worries, dreams. And slowly, without meaning to, they stopped noticing the cat. Not because the cat left, but because it faded. Not physically, not like vanishing, just quieter, more transparent. It still followed them around, still sat near their feet when they read, still watched them sleep from the corner of the room. But the child forgot, not suddenly, not on purpose, just over time, like forgetting a background song that once meant something, like forgetting a familiar scent. One day, someone asked the child, "Do you still have a cat?" And the child paused, thought, said, "No, I don't think so. I used to, but I don't anymore." And the cat heard that. From the hallway, from behind the wall, from whatever quiet place it now lived in. And in that moment, something strange happened. The cat stopped being a cat. It became a question, a fragment, a presence without identity. Because if the one who knew it no longer remembers it, then what is it now? Is it still real? Is it still a pet? Is it still there? Now, imagine this is not just about a cat. Imagine this is about a thought, a feeling, a part of yourself, something that used to live in your emotional house. Maybe a dream, a memory, a version of you that once felt everything deeply. It used to sit beside you as you lived your days. It used to walk with you from one room to another. It used to curl up quietly when you were sad. But over time, it faded, not because it left, but because you stopped seeing it. Now the paradox begins. If you forget something that is still there, does it stop existing? Or does it wait in silence, growing fainter, becoming something else? If no one remembers the cat, is the cat still a cat? And if no one remembers who you once were, is that version of you still inside you? Still breathing? Still hoping to be seen again? Picture this. One evening, the child is cleaning their room, dusting behind old boxes, rearranging things they have not touched in years. And in a quiet corner under a shelf, they find something soft, a small toy, worn, covered in fur. a cat's toy. And suddenly, the memory floods back. The feeling, the presence, the truth. I had a cat, I still have a cat, but where is it? They search the house, call softly, feel the air for movement, but the cat is not there. Not now. And this is the unsettling part, because the cat did not die. The cat did not leave. It was simply forgotten. And in that forgetting, it changed. Maybe it became something else. Maybe it became the silence in the room. Maybe it became the way the light moves through the window. Maybe it became a shadow that flickers at the edge of sleep. You see, the paradox is not in the cat itself. It is in the forgetting, in the fact that something can be both present and lost at the same time. That a piece of your life can still exist, but no longer belong to you. That memory is not just about what happened, but about what you are still willing to remember. Now think about your own life. The quiet dreams you once had, the soft parts of you that never demanded attention, the things you thought you could always come back to. Where are they now? Have they been fed? Have they been seen? Or have they curled into a corner of your mind and waited so long they no longer know if they are real? What does it mean to forget something that was never allowed to begin with? Is forgetting the same as letting go? Or is it just a pause so long that return becomes impossible? Picture this. The cat never left. It just learned to live without being known. It walks through the house like it always did. Soft, silent, watching, hoping for the sound of its name again. But if no one calls it, does it still answer to itself? Or does it become part of the walls? Now let this idea settle into your thoughts as you drift tonight. Think about the forgotten things that once loved you. The parts of you that never demanded much. That simply sat quietly nearby, hoping you'd notice. Not every part of you shouts. Some just wait. And some, like the cat, slowly change shape when they are no longer seen. So as you close your eyes, do not try to remember everything. Just notice the spaces between your thoughts. The ones that feel like soft footsteps in the hallway. The ones that feel like something is still near you. Maybe that is the cat, or maybe it is something else you forgot. Either way, it is still here. It just needs you to notice again. And maybe if you listen closely, you will hear the softest purr in the dark, not asking to be known. Just reminding you it never really left. The Forbidden Gate Paradox. Picture a quiet courtyard with one gate at the center. It is tall, old, and carved with strange symbols. There are no locks, no chains, no guards, only a small sign nailed to the wood. It reads, "Do not enter. This gate is for those who should not pass." There are no other instructions, no explanations, no reason given. Just a rule that sounds more like a warning than a law. You step closer. Nothing happens. The gate does not move. The world around it stays still. You ask yourself, what makes a gate forbidden? Is it what lies beyond it? Or the fact that someone said not to open it? And who decides who should not pass? You? Them? The gate itself? You look around. No one is watching. The space is empty. But still, the rule lingers. You feel it like a pressure in the air. The sentence on the sign starts to circle in your mind. This gate is for those who should not pass. If that is true, then anyone who goes through it does not belong there. But then again, how would anyone know they should not pass until they do? So you test the logic. If you believe you are allowed to enter, then you are going against the rule. But if you believe you are not allowed, then maybe you are exactly the kind of person the gate is made for. Either way, the act of stepping through means you are breaking something. Now you wonder, what happens if you open the gate just a little? Not to walk through, just to peek. Is that still breaking the rule? Or is it something in between? But even thinking that feels like a kind of crossing. Your mind is already moving beyond the gate, even if your body has not. You take a step back. You ask, why do I want to open it at all? Is it because it is forbidden? Or is it because something inside me is drawn to places where I am not supposed to go? You start to remember other times in life, places you were told not to explore, questions you were told not to ask, feelings you were told not to feel. The gate becomes more than just wood and metal. It becomes a symbol of every boundary built from fear, every line drawn by someone else's doubt. every limit designed to keep things still, even when they want to move. But here is the paradox. The gate says it is for those who should not pass. If you believe you should not, and still go, then maybe you belong there after all. Because the only ones who reach the other side are the ones willing to risk being wrong, and maybe that is what the gate wants. Not obedience, but awareness. Not silence, but reflection. Still, there is danger. Not every gate is meant to be opened. Some boundaries protect more than they trap. Some doors hide not treasures, but truths that change you forever. And once opened, cannot be closed again. You imagine stepping through, just one step, the world shifts. The air feels different. Not heavier, not lighter, just unfamiliar. You are now in a space you were never meant to see. But here you are, and nothing has stopped you. The gate did not fight you. It just watched. You ask, was the gate ever locked? Or was the real lock the thought that you were not allowed? What if the rule was never meant to stop you, but to slow you down long enough to ask why you are going? And that is the deeper part. The gate is not a barrier. It is a mirror. It reflects the part of you that wants what it cannot have, that questions what it should not know, that walks toward the edge not to fall, but to understand the shape of the boundary. So maybe the gate is not there to keep you out. Maybe it is there to ask you one question before you cross. Are you ready to carry what is on the other side? And if the answer is yes, not in confidence, but in stillness, then the gate will open. Quietly, without protest, because it never needed to stop you. It only needed you to pause. Let that image settle now. The gate, the sign, the still air around it. Let the question drift through you. Not what is behind the gate, but what the gate revealed about you. You do not need to open it tonight. You do not need to decide. Just rest beside it. Let it keep its secrets. Let it hold space for a part of you that is still deciding what should be crossed. Let the paradox stay soft and slow, like a breath held at the edge of a dream. Let it keep you curious. Let it keep you still. The named puppy paradox. Imagine a small village surrounded by forest. In this village, it is said that once every few years a nameless puppy appears. It is soft and quiet, and it never barks. People say it does not belong to anyone. It simply shows up. It follows whoever notices it first. It walks beside them, listens to their secrets, and sleeps near their doorway. But there is one rule. It must never be named. That is what the elders say. Never give it a name. Now picture a child in this village. They find the puppy one morning sitting near a stream. Its eyes are calm, its body warm. It follows the child home. It does not ask for food. It does not whine. It simply stays close, like a soft idea that never fully forms. The child grows to love it. They share stories. They laugh in its presence. They whisper their worries into its ears. And the puppy listens, always. Days pass, then weeks, and the child begins to feel strange, a kind of quiet loneliness. The puppy is there, but it does not feel real. People ask, "What is your dog's name?" The child says, "I cannot name it." They ask, "Why not?" And the child says, "Because if I do, it might go away." And people laugh, thinking it is a story or a superstition. But the child remembers the rule. One night, in a soft voice, the child breaks the rule. They look into the puppy's eyes and whisper a name they had been holding inside, something that feels right. Not too long, not too strange, just enough to make the puppy feel like it belongs. And then, something happens. The puppy looks away. It walks to the edge of the doorway. It sits, and it does not return. The child waits, hours, then days. They call the name again and again, but the puppy never comes back. It is as if the name erased it, as if giving it identity made it disappear, not in a flash, not in pain, just quietly, the same way it had arrived. Now the child is left with a thought that will never settle. Was the puppy ever real? Or was it a part of them? A part that could not survive being defined? What if naming it made it small, made it fixed, made it something it was never meant to be? This is the paradox. Sometimes, when you give something a name, You stop seeing what it really is. You trade mystery for certainty, connection for control. The moment you define it, you also begin to limit it. And in that limit, something disappears. The wonder, the possibility, the freedom. Think of all the things you have named in your life: emotions, relationships, ideas. Did giving them a label bring them closer to you? Or did it make them easier to explain and harder to feel? Now imagine the puppy again. Not gone, not erased, just waiting somewhere outside of names, outside of categories. Maybe it was never meant to stay. Maybe it was only meant to remind you of something soft and real that cannot be spoken aloud. What if parts of you are like that puppy? What if there are pieces of your mind or your heart that vanish the moment you try to name them? What if the more you try to understand them, the more they slip away? Let that thought curl up next to you like something warm and silent, something you do not have to explain, something you do not have to name. Let it stay without needing to belong. Because sometimes, the deepest connections are the ones that live outside of language, outside of ownership, outside of names. They're just there, quiet, watching, listening, waiting. Let it stay with you, even as you sleep, even as you drift. Let it exist just as it is, nameless, real, yours, and not yours at all. The still horse paradox. Picture this man, a man alone in an open field. The grass is tall and soft, waving in the breeze like water. The sky is wide, endless, cloudless. And in the center of this silent world stands a horse, dark, strong, motionless. It does not graze. It does not blink. It does not move. The man approaches slowly, one step at a time. The horse stays still, calm, waiting. He has heard stories about this horse, that it carries anyone who wishes to go far, that it never tires, that it never asks where or why. But it only moves when the rider does not. It only runs when the one who sits on it is completely still. That is the rule. That is the paradox. So the man steps closer. He watches the horse's muscles, the way its shadow rests on the earth. He wonders if it is real, but then it exhales. A soft, slow breath. He feels it in his bones. He touches its side, warm, quiet, alive, and then he climbs on. Now he sits, hands still, back straight, mind focused, and he waits. But the horse does not move, not even a twitch. The man tries again, tries harder to be still. He holds his breath, loosens his muscles, clears his thoughts, but the horse still waits. He begins to question everything. Am I moving without knowing it? Is stillness even possible? Is my heartbeat too loud? Is my breath too heavy? Is my wanting to be still making me move? He starts to notice strange things. The more he tries to be still, the more he feels motion inside him, tiny shifts, a flicker of thought, a muscle twitching, a hope rising, a doubt creeping. Stillness is not silence. Stillness is not absence. It is awareness without resistance. But now he is resisting. Now he is trying too hard. He realizes something else. The horse does not obey force. It does not care for effort. It responds only to surrender, not control, not even focus, but something softer, something closer to trust. Now he wonders, what if the horse is already moving? What if its stillness is only visible when he is moving inside? What if motion is reversed? What if every time he moves, the horse stops? And every time he lets go, the horse begins? He closes his eyes. He lets go of the need to travel, lets go of the need to prove anything. He forgets the goal, forgets the map, forgets the question, and in that moment he feels it. The wind changes. The grass bends differently. The sound shifts. The horse is moving, but not in the way he expected. It is not galloping, not racing, not taking him across landscapes. It is moving through something else, through memory, through thought, through fear, through surrender. Now he understands. The horse does not carry him through space. It carries him through self. The stillness is the key, because stillness is the only place where the path reveals itself. And then he asks a harder question. What if I try to go somewhere specific? What if I want to go back to who I used to be? What if I want to go forward into something I cannot name? Will the horse take me there? Or does it only go where there is no wanting? He tries. He imagines a destination. He fills his heart with longing. And immediately the horse stops, frozen again, as if feeling the tension, as if waiting for the rider to stop pulling from inside. He breathes again, lets the vision fade, lets the desire loosen, lets the moment settle, and the horse begins to move again. Now the paradox becomes clear. The horse only moves when you stop trying to make it move. The journey only begins when you stop chasing the destination. Stillness is not the absence of action. It is the presence of acceptance. It is being exactly where you are, with nothing pulling you elsewhere. So now the man rides, not toward anything, not away from anything, just with, just through, just in, and he wonders if this is what peace feels like. A horse beneath you that only understands what you cannot force. As you drift now, imagine you are that rider. Imagine the horse beneath you, strong, quiet, still. Feel the tension in your thoughts. Feel the parts of you that want to arrive. The parts that want answers. The parts that still believe stillness is wasted time. Then let them fall away, one by one. And as they fade, the horse begins again, slowly, calmly, without sound, carrying you not to a place, but to a deeper version of now. And maybe, when you wake, you will not remember the journey, but you might feel lighter, like something old moved quietly inside you while you slept, like the horse carried you somewhere only stillness could reach. The Lying Twins Paradox. Imagine you are lost, not in a forest or a dream, but in a place made of silence and stone. Two narrow roads stretch ahead of you. One leads home, the other leads somewhere else. A place where nothing returns, but there are no signs, no maps, no hints. Only two people standing where the road split. They are identical twins. Same eyes, same voice, same calm expression. You cannot tell them apart, but you are told one thing. One twin always tells the truth, the other always lies. You are allowed to ask one question, only one, and then you must choose your path. You stand there, quiet, staring at their faces. You try to guess, but they give you nothing, just stillness. You ask yourself, what would I ask? How can I trust an answer from someone I cannot trust? This is the Lying Twins Paradox, a problem with no obvious solution, because no matter what question you ask, you cannot know which twin is lying and which is not. Truth and falsehood wear the same face. The same smile, the same silence between words. You think harder. Maybe you ask, which road would your twin say is the way home? And then go the opposite way. That is the classic trick. A logical knot designed to outsmart the loop. But even then, part of you wonders, what if they both lie? What if they both tell the truth sometimes? What if the rules are only true as long as you believe in them? You look into their eyes and ask, are you the one who lies? And both say yes, or both say no. And the answers mean nothing. Because when truth and lies sound the same, trust becomes an echo that cannot return to you. You step back and wonder, how many times in life have you asked someone a question and not known if the answer came from honesty or fear, from truth or protection, from who they are or who they think you need them to be? We ask people things all the time. Do you love me? Will you stay? Can I trust you? And sometimes the answers feel real. Other times they feel soft, too smooth, like they were shaped to keep us calm. We do not always know which twin we are talking to, and often we do not want to know. The real paradox is not in the logic puzzle. It is in what the puzzle reflects. A world where truth and lies live side by side in the same voice, where intention hides behind certainty, where answers can be both right and wrong, depending on when and why they are spoken. You begin to feel that this test is not about the road. Not really. It is about how you ask, about how much you already know, about how still you can become in the face of contradiction. Because sometimes we are both twins. Sometimes we lie to ourselves in the same voice we use to tell the truth. Sometimes we give answers that feel safe, even when the truth is deeper and more dangerous. You close your eyes and ask the question again, but this time, not out loud. This time, you ask yourself, which road feels like home? Which road makes your body lean without thinking? The twins do not speak. They only watch. Because maybe the point is not to outsmart them. Maybe the point is to stop needing them at all. You take a step. You choose. Not because you are certain, but because you are willing to move anyway. The paradox stays behind, still waiting for someone else to come. Still waiting to ask a question that will never be answered cleanly. Let that idea settle with you now. The feeling of not knowing, of asking something and hearing two voices say the same thing in opposite ways. Let that loop soften. Let it blur into the edge of your thoughts. You do not need to solve it. You just need to rest beside it, like a question that hums gently in the dark. The Liar's Island Paradox. Picture a lonely island in the middle of a quiet sea. No name, no map, just stories passed around by travelers who say the island speaks in riddles. On this island there are only two kinds of people. Some always tell the truth, and some always lie. They live side by side, and no one knows who is who. But here is the twist. Every person on the island claims they lie, every single one. Every time someone speaks, they say, "I am a liar." No exceptions. Now, imagine you arrive on this island. You ask someone, "Are you a liar?" And they say, "Yes." You ask another. They say the same thing. "Yes." You begin to think this is just a game. But you cannot tell who is being honest. If someone tells you they lie, and they are lying about it, then they must be telling the truth. But if they are telling the truth, then they must be lying. Your mind starts to spin. You try again. You ask someone, "Will you ever tell me the truth?" And they smile and say, "Number." But is that answer a lie or the truth? The moment you try to believe them, you fall into a loop. You cannot trust what they say, but you also cannot trust what they say about not being trustworthy. This is the paradox. A person says they are a liar. If they are lying, then they are not a liar. But if they are telling the truth, then they are a liar. So the statement collapses into itself. Not just a contradiction, a trap, a place where logic folds in on itself and refuses to unfold. You begin to explore the island more. You ask different questions. If I asked you if the sky is blue, what would you say? You try to step around the puzzle. But every answer brings you back to the same spot. The truth becomes unreachable, not because it is hidden, but because the path to it is broken. And then a stranger on the island tells you something strange. They say, "We are all telling the truth, but we are also all lying." You ask how that can be? And they say, "Because when you live in a place where every truth is questioned, eventually everything becomes a kind of lie, even honesty." You stop walking. You sit near the water. You begin to think about your own life, about the things you have said, about the lies you told to protect someone, about the truths you told to hurt someone, about the half answers, the careful silences, the jokes that were not really jokes. And you wonder, in your own way, are you also from this island? You ask yourself, what happens when a lie is told so often, it starts to feel like the truth? And what happens when the truth is so uncomfortable that people pretend it is a lie? In that space, where the lines blur, how do you know what to trust? Now think about identity. If you say, "I always lie," and you believe it, then you are defining yourself by something that can never be stable. You become a shifting shape, a contradiction held together by your own words. What does that do to your sense of self? And what about others? What happens when you meet someone who always questions your honesty? Someone who sees every truth you offer as manipulation? Do you change what you say? Or do you change who you are? The island grows quiet. The waves slow down. And you realize something. You do not need to solve the paradox. You only need to feel it. To understand what it means to live in a world where truth and lies wear the same mask. Where every statement comes with a shadow. Where clarity is not a gift, but a choice. So close your eyes. Imagine standing on that island. The wind moving through the trees. The voices repeating, "I am a liar." But now the words sound different. Softer. Not a puzzle. Not a challenge. Just a reminder that some things are not meant to be fully known. Some truths are only clear when you stop trying to prove them. Let that thought settle in your mind. Let it stretch out beside your breath. Let the paradox keep whispering as you drift. You do not need to answer it. You only need to hear it. That is enough. The ignored monster paradox. What happens when something only grows because you pretend it is not there? Picture this. A small child hears a noise under their bed. A quiet one. Not a growl, not a roar, just a sound. Like something breathing. Not deeply, not like sleep, but waiting, watching. The child pulls the blanket tighter, eyes wide open, frozen. They do not look. They do not speak. They do not even move. They have been told again and again that it is not real, that there is nothing under the bed, that monsters are just stories. So they try not to believe. They try not to see. They try not to feel the soft shifting of air near their feet. But the noise does not stop. It never stops. It just waits, quietly, like it knows something you are trying to forget. Now imagine this monster is not under the bed. Imagine it is inside the walls of your mind. A thought you do not want to face. A memory you keep tucked away. A truth that never fit. It does not shout. It does not attack. It just waits. Day after day, year after year. In the places you do not look. In the moments you fill with noise. In the silences you refuse to sit in. And here comes the paradox. The monster only grows when you ignore it. Every time you pretend it is not there, it becomes stronger. Not louder, not bigger in size, but heavier, deeper, more part of the foundation. Like a shadow that starts to shape the walls around it. Like a whisper that begins to shape your choices. You do not see it, but it starts to choose for you what you avoid, who you fear, what you laugh at too quickly, what you change the subject from. It guides you not by presence, but by the absence you've created around it. Now picture this. A grown person still hears the sound, not under the bed, but in the pauses between conversations, in the silence after laughter, in the hesitation before they answer a question. It is still there, the monster, waiting. Not because it wants to scare you, but because it was never given another role. You made it into a monster by refusing to see it as anything else. Now imagine what would happen if the person sat down, on the floor, in the dark, and simply looked under the bed, not with fear, not with armor, but with softness. What would they see? Something large and twisted, or something small that had only become strange because it was starved of light? What if the monster never wanted to hurt you? What if it only wanted to be seen? What if the shape of it was only terrifying because it had been stretched by years of silence? Now the paradox becomes sharper. You can never get rid of the monster by ignoring it, and you can never know its true shape until you stop trying to hide it. But by then, it may already be shaping the way you live. So the question becomes this: do you dare to see it? Not destroy it, not fix it. Just see it. Just sit with it like a forgotten part of yourself. Not to win, not to escape, but to listen. Now imagine the monster speaks. Not loudly, not clearly, but enough. You hear a voice that sounds like your own. It says things you once believed but buried. It says, I remember when you stopped trusting people. I remember when you learned not to cry. I remember the day you decided to smile even when it hurt. And suddenly, you feel it. The monster is not some foreign thing. It is made of you. It was born the moment you told yourself, I should not feel this. I should not think this. I should not be this. And so it stayed, where you could not reach it. Until now. So as you fall asleep tonight, think about the places inside you that you no longer visit, the quiet corners where thoughts wait, not because they are dangerous, but because they were once left alone. Think of the ignored parts, the ones that became sharp only because they were silenced. Let them breathe. Let them be monsters for a little while, and then let them become something else. Because what you ignore does not go away. It changes form, and sometimes the only way to stop fearing the monster is to ask it what it is made of. And when it answers, do not run. Just listen. Maybe it will not roar. Maybe it will whisper something that sounds like the beginning of a lullaby you forgot. Maybe it will say, I am the part of you that never wanted to be scary. I just wanted to be known. Let that echo through the silence now, Let it soften the fear. Let it remind you that even monsters lose their shape when seen clearly. And maybe by morning, it will not be a monster anymore. Maybe it will just be a memory, or a voice, or a part of you can finally hold without shaking. The distrust test paradox. What if the only way to know if someone is lying is to prove that you never trusted them? Picture a room with one chair in the middle. A light hangs low above it. Across from the chair sits someone you care about, not a stranger, not a villain, someone you have shared pieces of yourself with. They are calm, they are quiet, and they have just told you something that matters, something that could change what you do next. You want to believe them, you really do, but something in your stomach tightens, a quiet signal, not fear, just doubt. And in this world, there is a rule. You are allowed to test whether they are lying, but if you take any step to confirm their honesty, the test becomes visible to them. They will know, they will feel it, and they will never trust you again. This is the paradox. If you check, you lose the relationship. If you do not, you might lose yourself. So what do? You stare at the person across from you. You think of all the moments that built your trust, the laughs, the stories, the promises made in half sleep and long walks. But you also think of all the small moments that didn't quite add up, the sentence that changed meaning when you played it back in your head, the shift in their eyes when you ask something twice, the long pauses. You begin to feel the weight of your own memory, not just of them, but of all the people before them, the ones you believed too quickly, the ones you tested too late, the ones who told the truth but still made you feel wrong. And now, the test is not just about this person, it is about all of them, every echo wrapped into one silent room. You look down at your hands. There is a button you can press. Just one. If you press it, the truth will be revealed. But so will your doubt. You hesitate. Because the moment your finger moves, the person across from you will see everything. Your question, your suspicion, your fear that they are not what they said. You wonder, is it better to live with a lie you never confirmed, or a truth that cost you connection? The button waits. You think of all the times people have asked you, do you trust me? And how often you answered yes because it felt like the right thing to say. Because the cost of saying no felt too high. Because trust is not just a belief, it is a performance. A role we play for each other to feel safe. But this moment strips away the performance. It brings you to the edge of real choice, and that is where the discomfort lives. Because trust is easy when there is nothing at stake. It is only when it becomes a risk that you see its real shape. You close your eyes. You ask yourself, what am I afraid of? That they are lying? Or that I will be proven right? Because sometimes it is not the betrayal that hurts most. It is the fact that you saw it coming and still waited. You feel the weight of the decision in your body. Your breath slows. Your muscles tighten without trying. This is the test, not of them, but of you. How much are you willing to carry without answers? How much do you need to know before you break something that cannot be put back together? You open your eyes. You look at the person again. Still quiet. Still calm. Maybe telling the truth. Maybe not. You do not know. And they are waiting. Not for proof. Not for a test. But for your belief. And that is the most fragile thing in the room. You do not press the button. Or maybe you do. The paradox is not in what you choose. It is in the fact that either choice creates a loss. If you trust without proof, you risk being wrong. If you search for proof, you risk being alone. And maybe that is what makes trust so rare. Not because people are unworthy, but because the act of testing it changes what it was. Let that question echo inside you for a while. Let it settle like dust after a heavy breath. Not everything needs to be solved. Some truths are meant to drift. Some doubts are meant to be carried gently, like a stone in your pocket, always there, but never thrown. Let the button stay untouched, or let it click in your dreams. Either way, you are not alone in this question. We all sit in that room sometimes, wondering who we believe and what that belief says about us. Now rest. Let the thought move slowly, like light sliding under a door you are not ready to open. Let the paradox stay soft tonight. It will still be here in the morning, waiting. quiet, like someone you almost trusted. The flawed oracle paradox. What would you do if you could ask a question and always receive an answer that is slightly wrong? Imagine there is an oracle. It sits in a quiet temple. It does not speak often, but when it does, people listen. Its answers are clear, its voice is soft, and for years people believed every word it said, until someone asked, "Are you ever wrong?" And the oracle replied, "Yes, but only by a little." Now imagine you are standing before this oracle. You have a question, a real one, something that matters, something that could change your life. You ask it quietly, and it gives you an answer. A simple sentence. It sounds wise, it feels true, but somewhere deep inside the sentence is a flaw, not big enough to notice right away, but just enough to mislead you. You walk away thinking you understand something, but you don't. And here is the trap. You do not know which part of the answer is wrong. You do not know if it is the beginning or the ending, the tone or the word. It might be the idea itself, or just a twist of timing. And that means you cannot trust it completely, but you also cannot throw it away, because most of it is right, and that is what makes it dangerous. The next time you ask, you are more cautious. You ask questions with safer words. You try to outthink the flaw. You say things like, "If I do this, what will happen in 10 days? And it answers. And you try to prepare for the mistake hidden inside. But the more careful you become, the more the oracle confuses you. Because now, you are not just reacting to truth or lies. You are reacting to the idea that the truth is slightly broken, that it bends at the edges, that it wears a small mask. And so your thoughts begin to loop. You ask yourself, did I mishear it? Did I misread the tone? You start to doubt your own memory. And slowly the oracle becomes a mirror, not showing the future, but showing your fear, not answering the question, but reflecting the way you ask. One day you stop asking. You sit in silence beside the oracle, and it speaks without being prompted. It says, "The flaw is not in my answer. It is in your need to know." That sentence hits differently. It feels right. But again, just slightly wrong. You try to hold on to it, but it slips. Now picture this. You leave the temple. You live your life. And every time you make a decision, you wonder, what would the oracle say? What part would it get wrong? And in trying to avoid the flaw, you create one of your own. You become uncertain, not because you lack knowledge, but because you have touched a source that makes you question knowledge itself. This is the paradox. What happens when most of what you know is true, but not all of it? What happens when your faith in an answer is just strong enough to follow, but just weak enough to lead you somewhere else? Think about your own mind, the thoughts you trust, the conclusions you reach. What if your thinking is like the oracle, mostly clear, mostly useful, but sometimes off by just a breath, just a sliver, just enough to change the outcome? Do you still trust it? Do you ignore the flaw? Or do you spend your whole life trying to find it? Now breathe. Let that idea settle. The oracle is still sitting there, silent, calm, offering answers that are almost right, waiting for someone who can hear the difference between what is helpful and what is nearly harmful. Let your thoughts quiet now. Let the oracle sleep. You do not need to ask anything else tonight. The answer is not the ending. The answer is just the echo. Let that echo follow you into rest. Let it guide you nowhere in particular. That is where the truth hides, in places that do not need questions, and do not mind being slightly wrong. The forgotten knock paradox. What if someone knocked at your door a long time ago, and you never answered and it is still waiting on the other side? Picture this, a hallway in a quiet house. One door, old, wooden, closed. The hallway is dusty but not abandoned. The walls breathe with silence. You live here, maybe not all of you, but the part that drifts between memories and meaning. You have walked past this door many times, sometimes quickly, sometimes pretending not to notice, sometimes telling yourself there is nothing behind it, but every now and then you remember the sound. A knock, just once, maybe twice. Soft, deliberate, and then silence. You told yourself it was nothing, maybe the wind, maybe a branch, maybe a dream. And time moved on. You grew, changed, decorated the house with distractions, laughter, noise, success, pain. But the door never opened, and the knock was never answered. Now imagine the knock was never from the outside. Imagine it came from within, a version of you that once had something to say, a need, a truth, a question, and it knocked, hoping to be heard. But you were not ready. So it waited. And when it was not answered, it did not leave. It became the door. You see, the paradox is not that you forgot the knock. The paradox is that the knock never stopped. You just learned how to live around it. Like how people live around grief, around regret, around truths that are too early or too heavy. Now picture yourself standing in front of that door again. Older now, quieter. The house feels different, not worse, just fuller, but the door is the same. And as you touch the handle, you hesitate. Not because you are afraid of what is behind it, but because you do not know if it still remembers you. And here comes the thought that sits like a whisper under your pillow. What if the version of you that knocked is still there, waiting, unaged, unchanged, still holding the message it came with? What happens to a truth that waits too long to be spoken? Does it fade? Or does it sink deeper until it becomes part of the foundation? Now ask yourself this. What if the knock was never loud because it respected your silence? What if it knew you were not ready? And what if you are still not? You do not have to open the door, but you can sit beside it. You can press your ear to the wood and listen. You might not hear words, but you might feel something, a pulse, a memory, a shape too soft to name. And maybe that is enough. Because sometimes the paradox is not in forgetting. It is in pretending forgetting is the same as healing. Sometimes the things we think we buried are just waiting for the moment we are quiet enough to hear them again. Let this settle into you now. Let the knock echo softly in the background of your thoughts. Not asking to be answered, just asking to be remembered. Let it remind you that every unopened part of you is not gone. It is only paused, waiting not to interrupt your life, but to rejoin it. And as you drift deeper, picture this. Somewhere inside you, there is still a hallway, still a door, still a gentle knock. And now, for the first time in a long time, you are near enough to hear it again. Let it be part of your sleep. Let it hum under your breath. Let it stay unanswered if it must, but never forgotten again. The silent voice paradox. What if the voice that guides you the most never speaks out loud? Picture a child walking alone in a quiet hallway, not lost, just wandering. The walls are soft with dust. The light is pale, almost like a memory. And somewhere, deep in the stillness, a voice calls to them. But not in words, not in sound. It is a pull, a presence. Like gravity, but made of feeling. The child stops, turns, looks around. There is no one there, no footsteps, no shadow, but they feel it again. That silent pull, not scary, just strange. A question without language. A direction without a map. They walk toward it. You know this voice. You have felt it. It is the one that nudges you when everything else is quiet. The one that says no when everyone says yes. The one that whispers not yet when the world pushes now. It is not loud. It never forces. But it never disappears. And sometimes it sounds like hesitation. Other times it feels like peace. And sometimes it feels like both at once. The paradox begins when you try to explain it, when you try to prove it. Because the moment you put it into words, something changes. The clarity gets foggy. The knowing gets tangled in reasons. And people ask, why do you feel that way? What made you decide that? And you find yourself reaching for language that does not belong to the voice. Words like gut feeling, or instinct, or vibe. But none of them are right. Because the voice does not live in the mouth. It lives in the space behind your thoughts. It speaks in pressure, in pause, in pull. You remember times when you listened to it. Times when you stopped just before something went wrong. When you turned around for no reason and found a better way. When you said no even though you could not explain why. And later, You were grateful. You did not understand it then, but you followed it anyway, and it saved you from something you could not name. But there were other times you ignored it, times you told yourself you were overthinking, that you were just afraid. That silence cannot be trusted unless it sounds like someone else's voice. And so you went forward, and something inside you ached, not because you failed, but because you abandoned something that had never failed you before. This is the silent voice paradox, a voice you can only hear when you are quiet. But the quieter you are, the harder it becomes to explain, and when you try to share it, people call it nothing. They call it random. They call it emotional. And so you start to doubt, not because the voice went away, but because the world does not believe in things that cannot be measured. You wonder, where did the voice come from? Was it born with you? Did it grow out of your early days? The times you were not yet fluent in language, but still full of knowing? Or did it arrive later, slowly, like dust settling in an unused room? You think of a time you almost did something that would have changed everything. Something small, a message not sent, a door not opened, a choice delayed. And how that delay shifted the direction of your life. Just slightly, but enough to see the path bend. The voice was there then, not commanding, just present. Like a question you were not forced to answer. Some say it is intuition. Others call it conscience. Some believe it is memory from a version of yourself that already lived this life and came back quieter. But all of these are still guesses. Names trying to shape something that does not want to shape. The voice does not explain itself. It does not justify. It only waits. And you feel it, or you don't. And yet, we live in a world that rewards noise, that values speed, that celebrates answers. In such a world, the silent voice is inconvenient. It takes time. It needs space. It is often wrong by the standards of logic, but it is rarely wrong in feeling. So you begin to train yourself not to hear it, not on purpose, just out of habit. You fill the silence with information. You ask others what to do. You collect opinions. You stay busy. You stay distracted. And the voice becomes faint, not gone, just harder to find. And here is the quiet twist. The voice never punishes you for ignoring it. It does not disappear forever. It does not scream when you walk the wrong way. It just waits, patiently, for the moment you are still enough to notice it again. And when you do, it picks up where it left off, as if no time has passed, as if it always knew you would return. You realize then that the paradox is not just about hearing, it is about believing. Can you trust something that cannot be proven? Can you follow a voice that only exists in your stillness? Can you defend a feeling when someone asks for facts? You sit with those questions. You do not try to answer. You let them drift around you, like smoke that moves even when there is no wind. You begin to feel the voice again, not as a sound, but as a presence. Just watching, just waiting. It is not asking for action, not yet. It is only asking to be remembered. And so you breathe, you soften, you close your eyes. And somewhere behind all the thoughts that want your attention, it begins to whisper again. The voice is still there, beneath the thinking, beneath the explaining, beneath the part of you that is always trying to make sense of things. It does not rise up with urgency. It does not shout to be heard. It simply waits for the noise to die down, and when it does, it moves closer, not with answers, but with a kind of weightless attention, like it sees you better than you see yourself. You sit with that feeling for a while, just letting it exist, just letting it watch, and slowly, you remember something strange. There were moments when the voice tried to guide you, but you called it something else. You said it was fear. You said it was resistance. You told yourself it was just a reaction to pressure or change. And sometimes it was. But other times it was not fear. It was knowledge, not loud, not detailed, but deeply aware. You begin to notice how often the voice is ignored when it is most needed. Before the wrong commitment, before the careless yes, before the trusted face turns away. It always says something. Maybe just a pause, maybe just a tiny tension in the chest, a flicker of unease. And yet we push past it. Because the world moves fast. Because others expect quick answers. Because we want to seem sure, even when we are not. And the more you push past the voice, the quieter it becomes. Not because it is fading, but because you are moving farther from where it lives. It does not chase you. It does not fight to be louder than your mind. It simply stays where it belongs, in the part of you that listens more than it speaks. Now, imagine someone else is with you. A friend, a stranger, someone you are not sure about yet. They ask you something big, something that asks for trust. And while your words say yes, and your face shows calm, something in your chest hums with hesitation. The voice does not say no, but it also does not say yes. It waits. You wonder if this is the voice protecting you, or testing you, or reminding you that not every yes is real, that sometimes the deepest wisdom is not in choosing, but in waiting. And maybe the voice knows that. Maybe it knows that timing is a kind of truth, that rushing past a signal just because it is quiet is the same as silencing it completely. You remember another time, a different choice, one you almost made, a path you almost walked, and the voice was strong that day, not in volume, but in stillness. It made your whole body feel like it should not move forward, like something inside you already knew what your mind had not figured out yet. You ignored it, and you walked anyway. And later, when things fell apart, you remembered the voice, not with anger, but with regret, a kind of quiet ache, the kind that does not blame, just reminds. This is how the paradox deepens. The voice is real, but only when you are not asking for proof. It is trustworthy, but only if you trust it before it makes sense. And when you try to use it as a tool, when you try to summon it like a calculator, it slips away. Because the voice does not work like reason. It does not speak in arguments. It speaks in direction, in drift, in the way your breath changes when something is right or wrong. You begin to understand that the voice is not something outside you. It is not a message from the universe. It is not a supernatural force. It is the part of you that stays uncorrupted. The part of you that watches everything but does not interfere. The part that still knows what you knew before the world taught you to doubt. And now you are wondering, why do we stop listening to it? Why do we treat it like a superstition or a softness? Why do we mock the inner voice when it is quiet, when we would trust it so deeply if it were loud? Maybe because we are trained to value clarity over knowing. Maybe because we are rewarded for being sure, not for being wise. Maybe because we want to be able to say, I did this because of this reason. And the voice never gives reasons. It only gives presence. So you begin to practice something new. You stop trying to hear it, and instead, you make space for it. You walk slower. You speak less. You pause before you agree. You let silence stretch a little longer between the moment someone asks and the moment you answer. And in that stretch, the voice returns. Not as a command, not as a warning, just as a gentle lean. A subtle shift in feeling. You begin to notice that the more space you give it, the clearer it becomes. Not louder, just more familiar, like a friend who never left, just waited outside until you opened the door again. You do not need to name it anymore. You do not need to prove that it is real. You only need to respect it, to treat it as sacred, even if no one else can hear it. And now, lying still, you feel it again, not telling you what to do, not pulling you in any direction, just being there, like a soft echo inside the quietest part of you. The part that always knew. And it is not asking for you to follow it. Not yet. It is only asking you to remember that it is still there. Still watching. Still waiting. The puzzle is still here. But you are different now. You no longer sit in front of it with the same urgency, the same hunger to finish. You look at the pieces like old friends. Some you have placed. Some you still hold. And others have quietly disappeared, as if they were only meant to be touched once and then forgotten. You pick up a piece that has no shape you recognize. Its edges seem soft, almost shifting in your hand. It feels like something half-remembered. You place it in the middle of the puzzle even though it does not fit, and the table does not reject it. It absorbs it like water soaking into dry ground. You pause, not in confusion, but in quiet understanding. The puzzle was never asking for the correct piece. It was asking for your presence. You realize something strange. There is no final image. No grand picture that will one day reveal itself and say, "Here it is. This is what it all meant." The puzzle has become what you gave it. And in return, it has become a reflection, not of the world, not of some truth waiting to be unlocked, but of how you approach mystery, how you sit with what you do not know. Somewhere in the background, a quiet rhythm continues. Not a ticking clock, not a heartbeat, just a pulse, like the puzzle itself is alive. And then you remember the note, the one that said, "The puzzle ends when you stop trying to solve it." You wonder now if that was meant as advice, or as a warning, or maybe it was neither. Maybe it was just another piece of the puzzle, left there to test whether you could let go. You lean back in your chair. You look at what you have built. The picture is not clear. It is not beautiful, but it is complete in a different way. It has been touched. It has been questioned. It has been loved and feared and misunderstood, and that makes it yours. But just as you begin to feel the weight of closure, the floor shifts. Gently, the table expands. More pieces rise from beneath the surface, as if the puzzle has grown while you were not looking. You reach for one. It is heavy. It carries a memory you are not ready to see. You set it down. You breathe. And you begin again. But this time, something is different. You no longer ask what the puzzle will become. You no longer worry about solving it the right way. You simply stay with it, piece by piece, moment by moment. And in that choice, a new paradox appears. The deeper you go into the puzzle, the more you disappear from the need to finish it. And in losing that need, you begin to see it more clearly. What if the puzzle is not a thing you are working on, but a place you live inside? What if every thought you have is a piece, every emotion, a shape? Every moment you pay attention, a corner quietly clicks into place. And every time you judge your progress, the image blurs. Now think about your life. Not the story you tell others, but the space inside you, where things remain unfinished. The questions you carry. The versions of yourself you thought you would be by now. What if those are not mistakes? What if they are just pieces you have not placed yet? What if trying to solve yourself is the very thing that keeps you from understanding who you are? You sit again, not to win, not to conquer, just to be here, in the middle of something unsolvable yet meaningful. And in that stillness, a new feeling rises. Not certainty, not relief, but peace. The kind that comes when you stop chasing the picture and start listening to the silence between the clicks. You pick up a piece. It has no shape, no weight, but it fits perfectly into the center of the puzzle. And for a brief moment, the entire table breathes with you, not because something is finished, but because something has been seen, accepted, allowed. Then the puzzle fades. Not completely, just enough. It remains, but no longer needs your effort. It does not ask for answers anymore. It only asks for presence, for care, for quiet attention. And you, the one who thought you came here to finish something, now understand. You came here to sit with something that never needed to end. You came here to become the space between the pieces. You came here to solve the part of you that thought everything had to be solved. Now sleep in that quiet. Let the puzzle remain. Let the pieces wait. They are not leaving. They are just resting. Like you. You do not need to find the image. You only need to stay curious. Let that be enough. Let that be the piece that was missing. The solving puzzle paradox. Picture a quiet room with no windows. The walls are blank. The floor is cold. And in the very center sits a table. On that table is a puzzle. Not a normal one. No edge pieces. No box showing the final image. Just thousands of small, perfectly cut fragments. You do not remember walking into this room. You only know you are here. And the puzzle is waiting. You sit. You touch a piece. It feels warm. Not like cardboard or wood, but like memory. Familiar in a way that makes no sense. You pick up another. Then another. Each one feels different. Not in shape, but in weight. As if some pieces are carrying something heavier than others. A thought. A feeling. A past. You begin to put the pieces together. Slowly. No pattern. No rush. just curiosity. And the moment two pieces click, something strange happens. A sound, a voice, not from outside, from inside, as if your own mind is unlocking something it forgot it was hiding. You hear laughter, a childhood memory. You see a place you haven't thought about in years, a hallway, a voice calling your name. Then it fades, but something remains, a warmth, a question, a layer. You keep going. More pieces click. More fragments of the invisible picture begin to form. Not just an image, but a feeling, a direction. Like the puzzle is not only being solved, it is also solving you, rebuilding something you didn't know was broken. But as the pieces come together, so do new questions. You begin to notice that some parts of the puzzle shift when you are not looking. A piece you thought fit no longer fits. Another one disappears altogether. You check the table. You check your hands. It is just gone, like it was never part of the puzzle at all. Or maybe you were never meant to place it. Now the room feels different, not threatening, but alive, watching, listening, responding to every move you make. You begin to realize the puzzle is not still, it is evolving, matching your thoughts, shifting with your moods. The more certain you become about a piece, the more it resists being placed. The more you let go, the more the pieces seem to find each other on their own. Then, something bigger happens. You place a piece that does not look like it belongs. Its color is off. Its edges are too smooth. But it clicks. And suddenly, the room flickers. Not visually, but emotionally. Like the entire space takes a breath. You feel something shift inside your chest. A quiet sense of loss. Like you just remembered something painful, but cannot name what it was. This is where the paradox begins to show itself. Every piece you place solves part of the puzzle, but it also changes the puzzle. The image is never fixed. It becomes whatever you believe it is. The more progress you make, the more unstable the picture becomes. You are solving something that rewrites itself in response to being solved. Now you ask yourself something quietly. What am I trying to finish? Is there even an end to this? Or is the puzzle a mirror, reflecting your own desire for resolution? And if it is, then what happens when you run out of pieces? Or worse, what if you reach a point where every piece fits, but the image feels wrong? You keep going. You place more pieces, but you stop caring about the final image. You begin to enjoy the sound of the pieces clicking, the feel of them in your fingers, the way each one seems to carry a small emotion, joy, regret, silence. You start to see the puzzle not as a thing to be finished, but as something to be felt, lived, understood in motion, not in completion. And just when you begin to relax into that rhythm, a drawer in the table opens by itself. Inside is a note. You unfold it. The handwriting is yours. It says only this. The puzzle ends when you stop trying to solve it. You stare at the note. Your hands freeze. For a moment, everything stops. You wonder who wrote that. Was it you? Or a version of you who already finished the puzzle once before? Maybe this is not the first time you have been in this room. Maybe this puzzle resets. Maybe it always brings you back. You try to remember, but the pieces blur. You look at the puzzle and no longer recognize what you have built. It looks like something else now. A shape that feels wrong, a pattern you don't recall choosing. The picture you thought you were forming has melted into something unrecognizable. You feel a quiet sadness, not because you failed, but because you realize that completion was never the point. This puzzle is not about reaching an end. It is about what you become while trying. You pick up one more piece. You turn it in your fingers. It does not fit anywhere. You set it down. You breathe. You close your eyes. The room is still. The puzzle is waiting. And so are you. The air feels thicker now. Not heavy, just full. As if the room remembers everything that has happened in it. Every time you touched a piece. Every time you questioned what you were building. You open your eyes, and the puzzle looks different again. Not in shape, not in number, but in mood. The colors have shifted slightly. More gray. More soft. As if the puzzle is tired too. You touch one of the edge pieces. At least, you think it is an edge piece. But there are no corners in this puzzle. No borders. No limit to where the image begins or ends. It feels like building sky. You fit a new piece in place. It snaps gently, almost too gently, and for a moment, you feel something in your chest settle. Not relief, not joy. Just a soft sense of being where you are supposed to be. You begin placing more pieces. Faster now. They seem to find each other more easily. And with every click, the room begins to hum, quietly. A low vibration just beneath your breath. You notice the puzzle is forming a pattern. A face, a landscape, a story. It is not what you expected, but it is beautiful, familiar, like something you saw once in a dream and forgot on purpose. Then you feel it. A slight resistance. A piece refuses to fit. You try another, then another. None of them match. You look at the image taking shape and realize something terrifying. It is not your story anymore. It is someone else's. The puzzle has begun finishing itself. You are just the hands placing the pieces. You hesitate. You step back. The table is silent. The drawer that held the note is still open. Empty. You think about the message again. The puzzle ends when you stop trying to solve it. You sit down. You fold your hands. You do not touch the puzzle. You wait. Nothing happens. The pieces do not move. The image does not change. The room does not react. Silence grows. And in that silence, a deeper question forms. What if the puzzle is not asking to be solved, but to be witnessed? What if your job was never to finish it, but to feel it unfold? You try to walk away, just to test it. You take one step from the table, then two. The room stretches slightly, not physically, but in feeling. You turn back. The puzzle remains. But now the pieces look more scattered than ever, as if leaving unraveled something in their order, as if your presence was the only thing holding them in place. You return to the table, sit again. The pieces have changed, subtly. Some are missing, some are new. You realize now this puzzle is alive, not in the way animals are, but in the way memories are, always shifting, always becoming, never fixed. You place another piece, and a sound returns, a voice from long ago. Not yours, someone else's. You cannot place it, but the emotion is clear. Grief. You place another. This time, laughter, faint, distant, but real. The puzzle is not just made of shapes, it is made of experience, of things you thought were gone. You keep going, slower now, more careful. Each piece placed becomes a thread, a memory, a question, and slowly you begin to feel something larger forming, not in the puzzle, but in yourself. You start to wonder if the puzzle is building you back together, piece by piece, one quiet realization at a time. Then a strange thing happens. A piece falls from the table. You pick it up, but it no longer belongs. Its edges have changed. It no longer fits anywhere. You try to force it, but it resists. And as you hold it, you feel a soft emotion rise. Regret, not sharp, just an old ache, something unresolved. You set the piece aside. You whisper, "Not yet," and the room seems to understand. You continue. New pieces, new fits, new sounds. More of the puzzle comes alive. More of yourself returns with it. Now the paradox begins to whisper louder. You are solving a puzzle that rewrites itself each time you understand it. Each moment of clarity bends the image just enough to need a new version of you to keep building. Every time you think you know what you are creating, the creation changes shape, not because it is cruel, but because you are changing too. You pause. You ask yourself, will this ever end? But the question fades, because ending was never the point. You realize the puzzle is not a thing. It is a place, a space to sit with the pieces of your own becoming, a way to meet yourself again and again, in different forms, through different fragments. You take a breath, place another piece, not to finish, just to continue. The picture is almost clear now, but the edges ripple softly, like water unsure if it wants to stay still, and somewhere in that gentle uncertainty, you begin to feel peace. The candle is lower now. The light flickers across the same two faces, but they seem older. Or maybe it is the room that feels more aged. Maybe it is not time that passed, but something softer. like the distance between two hearts, slowly stitching itself back together, thread by invisible thread. You are still sitting across from them, the one who broke your trust, the one you forgave. And tonight, something is different. Not in their face, not in your voice, but in the silence. It feels less heavy, less sharp. The silence is not punishing anymore. It is just quiet. A kind of gentle, tired silence. The kind that happens when two people have carried a weight for so long that even their stillness hums with exhaustion. You look at them and realize something. You no longer remember the exact moment when it happened. The betrayal. Not the facts, those you could write down like a timeline, but the feeling, the sting, the sharp intake of breath when the truth arrived. That part is softer now, like a memory filtered through fog. Still real, still meaningful, but no longer fresh, no longer burning. This is part of the paradox too. Forgiveness does not erase pain. It just teaches it how to rest. And sometimes, when pain rests long enough, it starts to resemble something else. Not joy, not peace, but understanding. You understand now that love is not clean, that people are made of contradiction, that betrayal can live next to care, that someone can hurt you and still love you, and you can love them back and still hurt. It does not make sense if you try to map it logically, but when you feel it, it feels true. More true than any clean answer ever could. You take a sip of water. They watch your hands. You think of asking them the question you never asked. Would you have forgiven me? But the words stop in your throat. Not because they are too hard, but because you no longer need to know. Forgiveness is not a transaction. You are not trading your pain for their loyalty. You are not holding your grace like a bargain. You forgave because it made space inside you. Because carrying the wound was making everything else too hard. Because resentment takes energy, and you were tired of being tired. Now the table is quiet again, but it is not tense. It is full. Full of everything that has been spoken and unspoken, and you realize you do not need to keep retelling the story of what happened, because you are now writing the story of what came after, and that story is softer. It is about slow mornings, small gestures, long walks without needing to speak. It is about the kind of love that rebuilds itself in quiet ways. But there is still a shadow, a small one. You feel it sometimes when they laugh, when they hold your hand, when they kiss your forehead like nothing ever broke. You feel the part of you that still wonders if it will happen again. Not because you believe they will do it, but because once the unthinkable has been done, it always feels like a possibility. That is the scar. That is the reminder. You have not forgotten. And maybe that is why the forgiveness still matters. Because it is not naive. It is not blind. It is fully awake, fully aware, and still choosing. This is the final paradox. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is not surrender. It is a fierce, quiet kind of strength. The strength to say, I know what happened. I remember how it hurt. And still, I will not let it shape the way I hold you today. You look across the table. You see them. Not the version that hurt you. Not the version that apologized. Just them. The human. The flawed. The trying. And you see yourself too. Not the broken. Not the betrayed. Just the one who stayed. The one who kept walking forward, even when everything inside said run. Maybe that is all love really is. Two people sitting with the parts they once wanted to hide, and saying, I am still here. You are still here. And somehow, that is enough. As the candle burns lower, you feel your body relax. The ache in your chest is still there, but it no longer pulls. It simply exists, like a soft bruise. A place that was once hit, but now just remembers. You do not need closure. You do not need answers. You just need this moment, this stillness, this strange, quiet understanding that even the deepest betrayals do not end everything. They bend the road. They change the view. But the walk can continue. You stand up. They do too. You walk to the window. Look outside. The night is calm. The wind is soft. Somewhere in the distance, something is growing. Maybe it is forgiveness. Maybe it is trust. Maybe it is just the quiet promise of trying again. And as you rest tonight, let this stay with you. The knowledge that forgiving does not mean forgetting, and loving does not mean pretending. It just means choosing to keep your heart open, even when it has every reason to close. Let that be your peace. Let that be your paradox. Let that carry you through sleep, quietly, fully, whole again in ways that are not clean, but deeply real. The forgiven betrayal paradox. What if the one thing that hurt you the most was also the one thing that made you feel most alive? Picture this: a long table, empty plates, faint candlelight. Two people sit across from each other, barely speaking, not because they have nothing to say, but because the words they want to speak have already been spoken too many times, or not enough. The silence between them is not empty. It is full of what happened and what did not. One of them betrayed the other, not loudly, not with anger, but in the quiet way that feels worse. The kind of betrayal that slips in like a shadow, a decision made without warning, a truth kept in a locked drawer, a soft act that changed everything. You already know this kind, not because it is dramatic, but because it is human, because it lingers. And yet the person sitting across from them has forgiven it, not in words, not in grand speeches, but in action, in staying, in returning, in continuing to sit at that table every evening as if nothing cracked the center of their world. Now imagine you are that person, the one who forgave. You told yourself it was the right thing. You told yourself it was brave, mature, healing. You said forgiveness is freedom, and maybe it is. But here is where the paradox begins. Every time you sit across from them, you see the ghost of what happened. You smile. You pass the salt. You ask how their day was. But part of you is still back there, at the moment when something small broke forever. And even though you forgave them, you wonder quietly, what part of you had to vanish in order to do it? Forgiveness is not just letting someone else go. It is letting go of the version of you that could not let this pass. It is cutting away the self that screamed "this matters," and replacing it with one that whispers, "it is okay." And sometimes, that replacement is too quiet. Sometimes it leaves behind a version of you that never got a voice. Now picture the one who betrayed you. They say thank you. They hold your hand. They look into your eyes with love. But you wonder if they see the cost. Not the cost they paid. The cost you paid to let them stay. Because the paradox of forgiving betrayal is this: when you let someone back in, they return to the place they hurt. And now, you must live with the echo of their footsteps on your cracked floor. It is not about blame. It is not about punishment. It is about presence. About how you carry them now. How you carry the version of them that hurt you alongside the version that loves you. They are both real. They are both sitting across the table. And so are the versions of you. The one who trusted. The one who was broken. The one who chose to forgive. And the one who never wanted to. This is the quiet weight that comes with forgiveness. Not just releasing someone from judgment, but carrying their contradiction. You no longer get to see them as one thing. You now see them as everything they were, and everything they tried not to be, and everything you still want them to become. And still, you forgive. Because it is not just about them, it is about you. About the life you want to keep building. About the peace you are trying to grow inside a heart that remembers too much. So you keep showing up. You keep sitting at the table. You keep pretending the plates are not filled with memory. You keep saying it is okay even when it flickers in your chest like a lie. But here is the deeper question. Is it still forgiveness if you feel it every day? Or does that make it something else? A slow bargain? A gentle forgetting? A permission to ignore the part of you that still aches? You try not to ask that out loud, because the answer is not clean, because you do not want to stop loving them, because you want this to work. You want your forgiveness to mean something. But part of you wonders if they would have forgiven you. And that question is not about revenge. It is about balance, about knowing if the bridge you rebuilt is one they would have crossed for you. Still, you say nothing. You keep smiling, because love is strange, because the world is complicated, because hearts are not made to carry logic, only weight. And you carry it well, most days, until the silence returns, until the candle flickers, until they say something small that brings you back, and you are there again, at the moment it happened, at the decision they made, at the feeling that never fully left. But you sit still. You remind yourself this is what growth feels like. Unsteady, uneven, quiet. You tell yourself it is worth it. And maybe it is, but that does not mean the paradox fades. It only means you have learned to live inside it. Because the strangest part is this: forgiving betrayal can make you feel more connected than you ever were. Because now you know the worst and still choose to stay. Because now the love is not soft, it is scarred. And somehow, more real. So you stay. You stay because walking away would not erase it either. Because pain follows. Because memory clings. Because part of healing is choosing which ghost to live with. And you chose this one. The ghost of what was forgiven but not forgotten. And as you fall asleep tonight, let this paradox rest beside you. Let it breathe against your ribs. Let it remind you that even the bravest acts can carry shadows. And that does not make them wrong. It only makes them human. Now imagine days have passed. Not dramatic ones. Not filled with storms or outbursts. Just quiet days. The kind that blend into each other. The kind that feel like normal. Like routine. The kind you once craved when things were falling apart. You wake up. You drink your tea. You sit beside them. You laugh. You even forget sometimes. Not all the way. But enough to feel light for a moment. Enough to believe you are whole again. But then it happens. A word. A gesture. A glance. Something so small it would mean nothing to anyone else. But to you, it is a match. And just like that, the memory returns. Not with rage. Not with fire. But like cold water down your spine. You are back in the moment when you knew they had chosen something else over you. Back when the betrayal first formed, not as an event, but as a shift. A tilt in the story that could never be undone. You do not show it. You stay quiet. You smile again. But inside, you are wondering why it still lives in you. Why the memory feels fresh when the wound is supposed to be closed. You told yourself you forgave them. You still believe that. But now you are starting to see what that word actually means. Forgiveness is not the absence of pain. It is the decision to live with it differently. You begin to notice the tiny compromises you make, the things you do not ask, the topics you avoid, the emotions you flatten before they reach your throat. Forgiveness has made you graceful, polished, careful, but it has also made you quieter, not in your voice, but in your truth. You wonder, is this what love demands? The smoothing of edges, the softening of memory, the gentle erasure of the self that once said, I will not tolerate this. And if so, is that love? Or is that fear dressed as peace? And now you start to notice something else. The way they move around you. Gently. Almost too gently. As if they know. As if they feel the space between you is still cracked in places. They try to love you more now. They reach for you more. They listen. They show up. But even that kindness carries a strange weight. Because part of you thinks, are they doing this out of love? Or out of guilt? And then you feel bad for even asking. Because that is the trap. You become the one who questions too much. Who cannot let go? Who holds on to the past like a shield? And no one wants to be that person. So, you try harder. You give more. You become generous with your silence. You call it healing. You call it moving on. But some nights, when it is quiet enough, you wonder if what you are doing is not healing at all, but disappearing. Because forgiveness, when repeated too often, can become a soft vanishing, a slow dissolving of the part of you that once said this matters. And when that voice goes quiet for too long, you start to miss yourself. You think about how you used to feel things more loudly, how you used to stand your ground, how you used to believe in boundaries, in fairness, in truth, and now you believe in peace, in keeping things stable, in not making them feel bad, in not revisiting what has already been settled. But deep down, you know it was never really settled. It was just buried. You start to imagine what it would be like if you could speak it again. Not to punish, not to reopen the wound, but to tell the truth. To say, I forgave you, but it still lives inside me. I stayed, but I lost something in the process. I love you, but I do not know who I am becoming in the shadow of this forgiveness. But you don't say it, because saying it feels like breaking something that already barely holds. You don't want to be the one who ruins the recovery. So instead, you become careful with your joy. You measure your happiness. You filter your emotions. And somehow, you end up protecting the one who hurt you more than you protect yourself. This is the paradox you now live inside. Forgiveness is supposed to be a release, but sometimes it becomes a room. Beautiful, safe, but with no windows, no air, no movement. A place where you keep pretending the betrayal never happened, just to stay close to the one who caused it. And the hardest part is they might never know. They might believe they have been redeemed. They might believe it is truly over, because you smiled, because you stayed, because you never said otherwise. But inside you, there is a quiet place where the betrayal still echoes. Not loudly, not cruelly, just enough to change the shape of everything. And now you ask yourself, who am I becoming? Not in theory, not in dreams, but in this life, in this day, in this forgiveness. What version of myself am I building every time I choose silence over truth? Every time I swallow the ache instead of naming it? As you lay your head down tonight, do not run from these questions. Let them sit beside you. Let them ask gently. Let them remind you that even love can carry shadows. And that forgiveness, when not shared with honesty, can turn into something quieter than truth. Something almost like forgetting. Something almost like vanishing. Now imagine a version of you who wakes up one day and feels different. Not healed, not finished, but clearer. As if something inside has stopped trying so hard to disappear. You walk through your home, the same space, the same faces, the same person across from you at the table, and yet the silence feels lighter. Not because the betrayal is gone, but because your relationship with it has changed. You are not pretending anymore. You are not calling it nothing. You are not smiling through it out of habit. You are simply sitting with it, not as a wound, not as a punishment, but as part of your story, part of your breath. And here comes the final shape of the paradox. You forgave them, but you also had to forgive yourself, for the times you stayed quiet, for the times you tried to be smaller, just to keep the peace, for the version of you that thought survival meant shrinking. You thought strength was never bringing it up again, but now you see, real strength might be telling the truth softly, not to hurt, but to be whole. So one morning, without rehearsal, you speak. The words come out gently. You say, I do not blame you anymore. I know why it happened. I know you are trying, and I know I chose to forgive. But that forgiveness was never a closing. It was an opening, a doorway I keep walking through every day. And on some days, the air on the other side still stings. They look at you, not with fear, not with shame, but with something else, a kind of quiet, a kind of grief. Because they thought it was over too. They thought your silence meant peace. But now they understand that peace is not silence. Peace is presence. And presence includes pain. They reach for your hand, and for once, you do not move to meet them. You let them come all the way. And when they do, you say, I love you. And that means I want to tell you when it still hurts. I want to be known even when it is uncomfortable. That is part of the love too. You do not cry. Not this time. Because this is not about sadness. This is about return. You are returning to yourself. To the version of you that once believed in softness with boundaries. In love with truth. In forgiveness that breathes. Now things begin to change. Slowly. Not in how they treat you. They were already kind. Already trying. But in how you treat yourself. You stop filtering your joy. You stop hiding your questions. You stop shrinking for comfort. The home you built after betrayal becomes something else. Not a shelter, but a garden. A place where old things can grow differently. Where love can include shadow. Where forgiveness can live alongside clarity. And sometimes late at night, the memory still comes. The moment it happened. The silence after. The way you held your breath and pretended you were okay. But now, when that memory visits, you do not push it away. You nod. You say, I remember, and that is enough. Because remembering is not reliving. It is honoring. It is saying, I came through that. I did not vanish. I became. You still carry them. You always will. But you also carry yourself now, not as a compromise, not as a cost, but as something sacred, something returned. That is what the paradox finally gives you. It does not give you closure. It gives you truth. And sometimes truth does not end a story. It keeps it open, keeps it real, keeps it soft. So tonight, as you drift, feel the quiet version of yourself that no longer hides in forgiveness. Let them breathe. Let them rest. Let them be part of you again, not in pain, but in presence. And if you ever feel the ache return, let it. That is just the story reminding you that you survived, that you loved, that you chose something impossible and made it livable, that you walked through betrayal and still knew how to hold someone's hand, that you forgave and still became whole, even if it took time, even if you are still becoming. Now, sleep in that truth, softly, completely, just as you are. The halfway traveler paradox. What happens when every step forward still leaves you only halfway there? Picture this. A traveler sets out on a quiet road. The sky is wide. The air is gentle. The path stretches out clearly in front of them. They are told that where they are going is not far, that all they need to do is keep walking, one step at a time, and they will arrive. So they walk, one foot in front of the other, focused, determined, calm. After a while they reach halfway. They pause, breathe, then walk again, another halfway, then again, and again. Each time, the halfway becomes smaller, closer, quieter. But it is still halfway, always halfway. They are always getting closer, but never reaching. Because no matter how many halves you cross, there is always more. Always a smaller piece between you and the finish. At first, the traveler is patient. The steps feel meaningful. The journey feels alive. But then a strange thought starts to grow. What if arrival is not possible? What if the road never ends? What if forward is a trick? They stop. Look around. Everything looks familiar. But not because they have been here before. It is familiar because it is always the same feeling. That sense of progress without completion. That quiet hunger for a finish line that keeps disappearing. Now, imagine this traveler is you, not walking a road, but living your life. You tell yourself you are almost there, that when you finish this project, or fix this problem, or heal this part of yourself, you will arrive. You will finally feel done, safe, whole. But every time you reach halfway, the finish moves again. You become better, smarter, kinder. But the feeling of arrival still stays ahead, just a little further, just a little more. And you tell yourself to be patient. But the patience becomes something else, a waiting that never ends. This is the paradox. You are always making progress, but never arriving. Because the idea of arrival is an illusion built from halves. And the truth is, there is no full, no final step. Only smaller and smaller pieces of becoming. And that can feel beautiful. Or it can feel like a trap. Sometimes both. Now, picture this. The traveler sits down on the side of the road. Not out of defeat, but out of clarity. They realize the journey never ends because it was never meant to. The destination is not a place. It is a pattern, a rhythm, a heartbeat of motion. They smile, not because they solved anything, but because they finally saw the shape of the problem. They are not stuck. They are just inside a rule of existence that says motion is life. Arrival is pause, and pause is not the goal. But even with that wisdom, something stirs inside them. A quiet ache. The kind that says, I want to arrive anyway. I want to finish. I want to stop needing to be in motion. I want to rest without feeling behind. And that is where the paradox tightens. Because now you see it everywhere. In your thoughts, your plans, your healing. Every time you say almost. Every time you say soon. Every time you say just a little more. You are chasing the other half. The final piece. But when you get there, the space simply folds in on itself, and gives you another halfway to cross. And it is not your fault. This is how the mind works. It frames life in destinations. It imagines peace as a place. But the deeper truth is quieter. You do not arrive at peace, you practice it. You do not become whole. You remember you already are. You do not solve the puzzle. You just learn to sit with it better. Now imagine the traveler rises again. This time they walk without measuring the distance. They do not ask how far. They do not count steps. They walk because walking feels like being. They notice things more now. The sound of the wind. The warmth of the sun. The silence inside their own breath. They stop thinking about arrival. And in that moment, something soft happens. The pressure fades. The ache loosens. The path becomes a companion, not a test. And maybe, just maybe, that is what was always missing. Not the other half. Not the final step. But the letting go of the story that said there had to be one. So tonight, as you lie still, think about the parts of you that are always trying to reach something. Think about the version of you that keeps saying when I am better, when I am done, when I am healed, when I am ready. Let that version sit beside you now. Hold their hand. Tell them gently, there is no finish line, but there is this moment, this breath, this heartbeat, and that is not halfway. That is everything. Let it quiet your thoughts. Let it soften the road beneath you. You are not behind. You are not almost. You are already here. Always here. And that is enough. The sleeping alarm paradox. What if the thing meant to wake you up was asleep itself? Picture a quiet room. Still. Dim. A bed with soft sheets. A body curled under them. Breathing slow. Calm. Dreaming. On the table beside the bed sits a small device. A simple alarm clock. The kind that glows faintly in the dark. Its job is clear. To wait. To count. To ring when the time comes. But tonight, something is different. The clock is still. Not broken. Just sleeping. Not in the way a machine fails, but in the way a person does. It is resting. The numbers blink slowly, gently, as if unsure whether they are real or imagined. The ticking sound is gone, replaced by a kind of breath, soft, even, alive. Now imagine the sleeper has no idea. They lie there trusting the device beside them, trusting it to pull them out of dreams when it is time, trusting it to do what it always has. But the alarm is dreaming too. Of time, of purpose, of noise it used to make. And so, nothing happens. The night continues. The minutes stretch. The air deepens. The sleeper sleeps on. And here the paradox begins. If the thing meant to wake you is itself asleep, how will you ever know when to rise? What part of you must become the new alarm? And can you trust it? Now imagine the sleeper is you, not just in this bed, but in your life, in your choices, in your habits. You tell yourself you will change when it is time. You will begin when the moment feels right. You will leave when the signal comes. But what if the signal is sleeping? What if the sign you are waiting for is inside something that has stopped noticing time? You tell yourself the world will wake you when it is ready, but maybe it already tried. Maybe the moment came and passed. Maybe the alarm rang once, quietly, and you did not hear it. Maybe it gave up. Or maybe it simply drifted into its own sleep, mirroring yours. So now you lie in comfort, peaceful, wrapped in the softness of delay. You are not unhappy, but you are not moving either. The bed has become a space of waiting, of trusting something else to shake you when it matters. But the paradox deepens, because the longer you sleep, the more you need the alarm to work. And the longer the alarm sleeps, the less likely it is to wake at all. You are both now trapped in a loop of rest, of delay, of comfort pretending to be safety. You shift in your dream. You hear a sound, not loud, just a thought. A question forming at the back of your mind. What time is it? But there is no answer, no confirmation, no ringing. The dream continues. You see yourself doing things you have not done. You see places you were supposed to visit. You feel the weight of something unfinished. Now imagine waking suddenly, not because of the alarm, but because something inside you whispered loud enough to pull you out. You sit up, disoriented. The room is still dark. The numbers on the clock are blank. You tap it. Nothing. You shake it. It glows faintly, like it just remembered it had a job. Too late. You stand up. The floor is cool. The house is quiet. And in the silence, a strange feeling grows. Not panic, but possibility. Like maybe you do not need the alarm anymore. Like maybe the thing that was supposed to wake you was never outside of you. It was always a part of you, waiting to be trusted. But here is where the paradox curls in again. If you no longer need the alarm, why do you still look at it? Why do you still place it beside your bed? Why do you still hope it might ring next time? You begin to realize it is not about time. It is about responsibility. About how much of your waking life you have given to something else. Something meant to keep you safe. On track. On time. Something that now sleeps as deeply as you once did. So now, the choice becomes clear. Will you wait for the alarm to wake again? Or will you learn to rise without it? The sleeper returns to the bed, but they are not the same. Something has shifted. A new kind of awareness hums in the chest. The dream has not ended, but it has changed shape. It is lighter. More fragile. Like a bubble that might pop with too much breath. You close your eyes. You feel the weight of all the moments you waited for a sign. You remember the choices you postponed, because you thought someone would ring the bell. You remember the mornings that never came because you never questioned the silence. And now, maybe, you will not sleep the same way again. As you drift deeper into rest tonight, let this stay with you. The thought that sometimes the thing designed to wake you up is asleep too. And when that happens, the only sound that can pull you back is the one inside you. It is not loud. It does not shout. But it waits. Always. And maybe that is the real alarm. The one that never needed a button. Only permission. The proved creature paradox. What happens when proving something real is what makes it disappear. Imagine this. A small town tucked far into the woods. One road in. One road out. The kind of place where people still speak in quiet voices and the stars feel closer than usual. In this town, there is a story. A creature. No one knows where the story came from. Maybe it began as a whisper passed from child to child. Maybe it started with a dream someone could not forget. Maybe it just always existed. Like the trees. Like the fog. They say the creature lives at the edge of the forest. It does not harm. It does not help. It just appears. Sometimes to one person, sometimes to none, but always in the same way. A shape, a feeling, a knowing. You do not see it with your eyes. You feel it first in your bones. Like the moment before a storm. Like the silence that happens just before someone says something that changes everything. And everyone who has seen it says the same thing. It was there. I know it was. But I cannot describe it. I cannot draw it. I cannot prove it. Now imagine someone new arrives in town. Not a believer, a scientist, a seeker of facts. They do not care for stories. They want evidence, data, truth that holds. So they bring cameras, sensors, microphones. They set traps. They take notes. They tell the townspeople, I will prove it. I will show you this creature once and for all. And for the first time, something shifts. The air changes. The forest holds its breath. The creature, wherever it is, seems to wait. The scientist searches. Days pass. Nights grow longer. No signs. Nothing unusual. Until one morning, just before dawn, something appears on one of the cameras. A blur. A shape. A movement that defies the light. The scientist rushes to the footage, plays it back, slows it down, enhances the frame. And there it is. A figure. Strange. Still. Too precise to be imagined. Too unclear to be identified. But it is there. Proof. A captured glimpse of what the town always spoke about. The scientist is thrilled. They announce it. Publish it. Share it. The world hears. Articles are written. Debates begin. Some say it is fake. Some say it is a breakthrough. The town becomes famous. People come to visit. To take pictures. To see what has now been labeled as real. But something odd begins to happen. The sightings stop. No one feels the creature anymore. The forest grows quiet in a different way. Not peaceful. Empty. as if something has left, as if something has closed. Now the townspeople grow restless. They whisper again, but this time it sounds different. They say, maybe it was never meant to be proved. Maybe it only appeared when we believed without seeing. Maybe what made it real was not evidence, but the space we left for it to exist. And this is the paradox. The act of proving something that lives in the unseen can sometimes destroy the very thing that made it real. Some truths are not meant to be caught. They are meant to be trusted. Some creatures are not meant to be named. They are meant to be felt. Now picture the scientist, alone, watching their own footage again and again. But it feels different now. Less like a discovery, more like a farewell. They realize what they caught was not the creature. It was its final moment, its goodbye. And now imagine something deeper. What if this creature was never outside at all? What if it lived inside? A part of the self. The wonder. The unexplainable. The emotion you could never name but always knew. The thing you carried with you as a child. The thing you stopped looking for when you got older. What if, by trying to prove to the world that it was real, you convinced yourself that it had to look a certain way, that it had to behave under rules, that it had to fit into a box made of facts, and in doing that, you no longer felt it. Because the creature was not a thing. It was a space, a question, a mystery that made you feel alive just by asking, and now, in proving it, you close the question. This is the heart of the paradox. When you catch the thing that was never meant to be caught, you turn it into something else. You remove its essence. You turn magic into measurement. You turn wonder into a file. And sometimes, we do that with people, with feelings, with ourselves. We try so hard to explain what we feel, that we flatten it. We try to prove we are okay, and in doing that, we stop being honest. We take the soft things inside us and shine too much light on them, and they retreat. So tonight, as you fall asleep, think about the creatures inside you that once made you feel alive, the parts of you that danced just outside the reach of logic, the dreams you never had to prove, the feelings that never asked for language. Let them live again, not by catching them, not by naming them, but by letting them stay blurry, letting them stay just out of reach. Because some of the most real things are the ones we stop feeling when we try too hard to prove they were ever there at all. Let your mind stay soft. Let your thoughts stay open. And if you feel something watching you from the edge of your sleep, do not chase it. Just nod. Just breathe. Just feel the presence of what was always meant to be felt but never captured, and let that be enough. The self-fulfilling prediction paradox. What if the future becomes real only because you believed it would? Picture this. A man wakes up one morning to a knock at the door. No one is there. Just an envelope resting quietly on the ground. Inside, a simple message written in soft ink. You will lose something important today. Nothing else. No name, no details, no warning, just that sentence. You will lose something important today. He laughs at first, thinks it must be a prank, throws it in the trash, but the words stick. Not loudly, not sharply, just quietly, in the background, behind his thoughts. As he pours his coffee, he wonders, will it be something physical? Will I misplace my keys? Will I get a call with bad news? As he gets dressed, he hesitates. Should he wear the blue shirt or the gray one? Which one feels safer? He begins to move through the day, not with intention, but with caution. Every decision now filtered through one idea. What if this is the thing I lose? As the day passes, something changes. Not the world. Him. His tone. His posture. His rhythm. He becomes more careful, less open. He avoids people. Skips a phone call, cancels a plan, and somewhere in the middle of all that, something begins to slip, not by accident, but by slow erosion. He pulls away from a friend, avoids a conversation, misses a moment of joy, because he is looking over his shoulder. And by the time the sun sets, the prediction has come true. He has lost something, not a thing, not an object, but a thread, a piece of connection, a softness, a trust. And it did not happen to him. He walked himself there, one step at a time. Not because the prediction was real, but because he believed it was. Now imagine this is not a story. Imagine this is how you live, not with envelopes and letters, but with thoughts that land like soft predictions. You will fail this time. You will be hurt again. You will not be enough. You will lose them. These are not sentences you say out loud. These are the ones that whisper through the corners of your thinking. And even when you do not notice them, you begin to respond. With distance. With fear. With hesitation. And this is the paradox. The prediction is not true when you hear it, but it becomes true when you act from it. And by the time it happens, it looks like it always was. But really, you made it happen. Not out of weakness, not out of foolishness, but out of a deep need to protect yourself, to prepare, to avoid pain. You think, if I expect it, it won't hurt as much. But the expectation does something else. It shapes the moment. It dulls the connection. It changes the path. Now picture this happening in small ways. Every time you say, they will probably not care, and so you do not speak fully, they do not respond deeply, and the prediction lives. Every time you say, I am not going to succeed, and so you hold back just slightly. You shrink your effort, and when it does not work, you say, I knew it. You forget that the knowing came before the result, and the result came from the way you moved after the knowing. Now think of all the times you said, it is not worth trying, not worth loving, not worth asking. Those were not facts. Those were predictions. And they became facts only because you treated them like prophecy. What if your life is full of predictions that are not about the world, but about your response to it? The paradox sits quietly here, a loop with no loud edges, just a smooth circle. You believe a thing, you act like it is true, and so it becomes true, which makes you believe it even more, until it becomes unbreakable, but not because it is reality, because it is rehearsed. Now imagine the opposite. A child walks into a room and is told by someone they trust, you are strong, even if they do not feel strong that day, even if they doubt it. That thought starts to shape how they hold themselves, how they face the next small problem. And slowly, the world begins to reflect what they were told. Not because it was already true, but because someone believed in them before they could. This is the other side of the same paradox. A prediction can destroy you, but it can also build you, depending on which one you feed, depending on how early you decide it is already written. So ask yourself tonight, what predictions are you still living from? What have you already decided about your worth, your future, your relationships? What stories do you repeat to yourself, not because they are true, but because you fear what it would mean to stop believing them? And here is the hardest part. You cannot always tell which ones are shaping your life, because they feel like facts, but they began as ideas. And now they are habits, reactions, assumptions that run quietly underneath your daily life. As you sleep tonight, imagine gently rewriting one of them. Just one. Not to erase the past, but to give the future a different path to follow. Imagine if instead of saying, this will not work, you said, maybe it will. Just that. Maybe. A small door opening where a wall used to be. And maybe, that is all it takes to change the loop. One small maybe. Spoken gently, lived quietly, allowed to grow. Because predictions do not need to be true to be powerful. They only need to be believed. And maybe that belief is the most powerful choice you still have. The still trap paradox. What if the only way out was not to move at all? Picture this. A forest so quiet it hums. No birds, no wind. Just the stillness of everything listening. In the center of that silence stands a trap. A perfect one. Not sharp, not brutal, just still. It does not snap shut. It does not lure. It simply waits. Invisible unless you are already in it. And once you are, something strange happens. The more you move, the tighter it becomes. The more you try to escape, the more it closes in. Now picture someone walking through the forest. Calm, curious. They step into the space where the trap lives without even knowing. Nothing changes at first. Nothing announces itself. But as they walk forward, they feel it. A resistance, a tightening, a strange pressure around the ankles. They stop. It loosens. They move again. It tightens. Not pain. Just restriction. The harder they fight, the stronger it gets. But when they are still, it almost disappears. They begin to panic. Try to run, but the trap only tightens more. Breathing becomes difficult. Steps become impossible. It is not holding them physically. It is holding them emotionally. Through the tension of effort, through the illusion of needing to get out. And this is when the paradox begins. They stop, not because they have given up, but because they cannot move anymore. And in the moment of stillness, something soft returns. The pressure fades. The air becomes easier. The body relaxes. The trap is still there, but it no longer pulls. They sit down, right there in the middle of the invisible tension. They stop fighting, stop running, and the trap begins to dissolve, not vanish, just loosen, not because they escaped, but because they became still. Now imagine that this forest is not real. It is your mind, and the trap is not on the ground. It is in your thoughts, in your need to fix, to control, to push forward, to escape discomfort, to escape yourself. And the more you try to break out, the tighter it holds. Because effort creates resistance. Because the very act of fighting proves to the trap that you believe it is real. So now you are sitting there, in your own thoughts, feeling trapped, feeling like you cannot breathe. And every strategy you try makes it worse. Every technique, every mindset shift, every deep breath meant to calm you starts to feel like another tug on the chain. But then, one day, you stop, not out of defeat, but out of exhaustion. You stop thinking your way out. You stop judging where you are. You stop needing the discomfort to go away. You become still, and the trap softens, not because you won, but because you stopped creating the thing that kept it alive. Now you understand. The trap was never made of walls. It was made of motion, of constant needing, of never letting the moment be what it is. Stillness does not set you free. It just reminds you that there was never anything to break. But this is not easy, because stillness is scary. Stillness feels like doing nothing, like failing, like disappearing, like surrendering to the very thing you want to overcome. And yet, it is the only thing that loosens the grip. You learn to sit, not as punishment, but as practice. You learn to be inside discomfort without trying to escape it. You learn to feel the trap, but not obey it. And slowly, your body remembers how to rest even while it is inside tension. This is the core of the still trap paradox, that only by ceasing the struggle does the trap begin to release. But your mind will tell you otherwise. Your mind will beg you to move, to act, to fix, because that is what it was trained to do. And every time you resist the urge to obey, you weaken the trap's illusion. Now imagine this person again. Days have passed, maybe years. They walk back through the same forest. They see the space where the trap once held them, but it no longer grips. They step into it. Nothing happens. They keep walking. They do not need to be afraid, because the fear came from the struggle, not from the trap itself. And now they understand. The trap is not gone. It still waits. For someone new. For someone rushing. For someone needing. But they are different now. They carry stillness with them. Not like armor, but like water. They know how to stop. How to breathe without trying to control the breath. How to feel discomfort without calling it danger. So as you drift tonight, ask yourself gently, where is your still trap? Where are you fighting something that needs your silence, not your effort? What would happen if you just stopped for a moment? Not quit, just paused. Saturday still. Let the moment wrap around you like wind through trees. Not everything needs solving. Not every cage is locked. Some only exist because you keep shaking the bars. So tonight, let the bars be still. Let your breath be still. Let your thoughts float without needing to land. And if you feel trapped, do not move. Just watch. Just breathe. Just stay. Let the stillness do what effort never could. Let it show you the way out was always through the quiet you kept avoiding. And maybe, by morning, you will find that the trap is gone. Or maybe it was never there. Maybe it was only your need to escape that gave it shape. The vanishing stranger paradox. What if someone walked into your life just long enough to change everything, and then disappeared so completely you started to wonder if they ever existed? Picture this. A park bench. Late afternoon. The light is soft, almost golden, and the trees sway in that slow rhythm that makes time feel like it is holding its breath. You are sitting there, maybe reading, maybe thinking, maybe just trying to feel the quiet, and then someone sits next to you, not too close, not too far, a stranger, calm, gentle, unassuming. They do not introduce themselves. They do not seem in a hurry, but they start to talk, not in a pushy way, more like a thought that forms into words without force. They say things you have been thinking, things you have never said out loud. They speak softly about fear, about time, about how we forget who we are because we spend so long trying to be what the world asks. They say just enough, not too much, and they listen more than they speak. You do not tell them everything, but somehow you feel like you already have. You feel seen, understood, as if someone is finally looking at the version of you that has been hiding behind all the others, the version that does not need to perform. And then, just as the conversation begins to feel like something you will remember forever, they stand up, they smile, they thank you for the company, and they walk away. You watch them for a few steps, and then something distracts you. A sound, a bird, a car, something small, and when you look back, they are gone. Not out of sight, just gone. Like a dream when you open your eyes. You get up, you walk the same direction, you check the path, the nearby trees, but nothing, no trace, no footprints, no fading figure, and the bench feels colder than it did before. Now imagine this keeps happening, once in your life, maybe twice. You meet someone unexpected. They appear when you are lost, when you are questioning everything. They offer no solutions. Just presence, just a moment, just enough of themselves to make you feel like maybe you are not alone. And then they vanish. Again and again. You never know their name. You never find their shadow in any memory beyond that exact point. You start to question it. Did it happen? Was it real? Were they someone you made up because you needed them to exist? Was it a version of yourself you projected into form? Were they a test? An answer? A ghost? And now the paradox grows deeper, because the more you try to prove they were real, the more you start to doubt your memory. You search for signs, photos, witnesses, but no one else saw them. No one else remembers. No one else was there. And yet, the impact remains. You remember what they said. You remember how they made you feel. You remember something inside you shifted after they left. So what matters more, their presence or their proof? Now picture yourself years later, older, quieter. You are walking through a different park, a different city. You sit again. You breathe. And someone new sits beside you. You do not recognize them, but they begin to speak. And what they say feels familiar, like a continuation, like a thread picked up again, after being set down for decades. They say something that sounds like something the other stranger said, but slightly changed, more evolved. And again, you listen. You feel calm. You feel something inside you begin to rearrange. And again, after a short time, they leave. Just as gently, just as silently. And again, they vanish. Now you begin to understand something strange. These strangers, if they are strangers, are not random. They appear when something inside you becomes too quiet, too confused, too untethered. They do not give you answers, but they remind you how to ask the right questions again. They do not fix you, but they remind you that you are not broken. And you start to think, maybe this is not a who. Maybe this is a when. Maybe these visitors are not people at all, but moments. Manifestations of something you are ready to see. Maybe they are a reflection of the part of you that is still trying to reach you. And they can only appear when you are still enough to notice. But if that is true, then why do they feel so separate, so other? Why do they feel like someone you have never been, but always needed? That is the puzzle. That is the trap. The paradox of the vanishing stranger. They are real enough to change you, but not real enough to be held. They arrive only when you are most open, most undone, most ready. And when they do not leave behind evidence, only memory. And even that starts to blur over time. So you begin to ask the scariest question of all. What if you have been this stranger to someone else? What if there are people who remember you from a bench, from a bus, from a hallway, from a single sentence that you forgot you said, but they remember forever? What if you appeared just once in someone's life and shifted the direction of their thoughts without even knowing it? What if you are someone's vanishing stranger? And if that is true, then maybe this paradox is not about proof. Maybe it is about presence, about what happens when you stop needing to know if it was real and start honoring that it felt true. So as you rest tonight, think of the stranger who spoke to the deepest part of you, the one who vanished too soon. Let yourself remember what they gave you, not the facts, but the feeling, and let that be enough. Let yourself be still enough to notice if someone is sitting beside you now, even in thought, even in memory, even in the parts of you that never needed answers, just reminders. And if you wake with a question in your chest, let it stay. Some questions do not ask to be solved, only to be carried, quietly, gently, until they bring the stranger back again. The unaccepted deal paradox. What if the fairest deal is the one you are afraid to accept? Picture this. A stranger appears in front of you, not in a dark alley, not in a dream, but somewhere normal. A cafe, a quiet bookstore, a bench in the middle of your day. They are calm, polite, familiar in a way you cannot explain. They sit beside you and make an offer. No tricks, no riddles, just a deal. One trade. Something you want in exchange for something you no longer need. Something clear, balanced, generous. They say, give me your doubt, and I will give you peace. Give me your old anger, and I will give you clarity. Give me your fear, and I will give you freedom. The kind of offer that should be easy to accept. The kind of deal that feels like the answer to something you have been quietly begging for. But you do not say yes, not right away. You ask questions. Who are you? Why me? What do you get out of this? The stranger smiles, says nothing more, just holds the deal out, as if it were a stone, warm from the sun, resting in their hand. You do not touch it. You just look, suspicious, careful. You begin to think, what if this is a trap? What if I give something away and lose more than I think? What if I need my doubt? What if my fear is protecting me? What if my anger is the only reason I have boundaries? And the longer you sit with the deal, the more reasons you find not to take it. Not because the deal is unfair, but because you cannot imagine yourself without the thing you are being asked to trade. You say, maybe later. You say, let me think about it. You say, I need to know more. The stranger nods, still smiling, still holding the same offer, still waiting. Now imagine this is not a person. Imagine it is a moment, a truth, a shift in your life that quietly presented itself, a chance to let go of something heavy, something that has lived in your chest for too long, and you knew deep down what it was asking, but you did not say yes. You paused, you stalled, you backed away from your own relief. And here is the paradox. The deal is real, it is fair, it is right there in front of you, but because you cannot accept it, it becomes invisible, not gone, just unseen. The cost is simple, but the cost is part of who you think you are. You begin to confuse what you carry with who you are. You say, I am anxious, I am angry, I am guarded, and the offer says, no, you are carrying those things. You can set them down. But your arms do not move, your hands stay closed. You tell yourself stories. You say, I need to understand the whole deal before I accept. I need proof it will work. I need to feel ready. But the truth is simpler. The deal does not need your understanding. It only needs your surrender. And that is the part that feels dangerous. Because surrender means stepping into an unknown version of yourself, the one who is no longer hurt, no longer bitter, no longer defended, the one who might be soft, open, uncertain, and you are not sure how to be that person anymore. So the deal waits, not taken, not rejected, just floating in your presence, like a balloon tied to a bench. You walk around it every day, Pretend not to see it, but it is always there. Your refusal is not loud. It is quiet, passive, a whisper of later that becomes forever. Now imagine how many times you have done this, in small ways. A chance to trust someone, and you turn away. A moment to forgive yourself, and you delay. A feeling that could grow if you just allowed it, and you smother it instead. Not because you are wrong, but because you are familiar with the weight. Because the cost of release is becoming someone new. And even peace can feel like a threat when you have lived too long inside your own pain. This is the unaccepted deal. Not a trick, not a loss. A gift offered in exchange for something you no longer need. But because you are so used to carrying it, you think it is you. So, you stay. In the almost. In the maybe. In the not yet. While the deal waits patiently like a mirror. Never pressuring. Just existing. And every day you pass by it without realizing, the reflection grows more distorted. Because the longer you avoid peace, the more unnatural it begins to look. But here is something you must know. The deal never vanishes. It will return. In a different form. A new person. A new day. A new thought. But it will be the same trade. Will you let go of the version of you that has already served its time? Will you release what you no longer need? Will you trust that something better does not need to be earned, only accepted? And maybe, the most surprising part, is this. The deal is not between you and someone else. The stranger is just your voice, the one you buried beneath the noise. The one that remembers what you wanted before the world taught you how to protect yourself from it. It is not asking for your faith, just your presence, just your willingness to believe that softness is not weakness. That letting go is not failure. That peace is not something you win. It is something you stop pushing away. So tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine that offer is sitting in front of you. Calm, quiet, still warm from the sun. You already know what you need to give. You already know what you will gain. The only thing left is to decide. And maybe, this time you will not walk away. Maybe you will open your hand. Maybe you will say yes without needing a guarantee. Maybe you will remember that the best kind of freedom is the one you are allowed to choose, even if it scares you, especially if it does. The empty box paradox. What would you do if someone gave you a box and told you it contained everything you ever wanted, but when you opened it, it was completely empty? Picture this. You are handed a box. Small, plain, wrapped in silence. There is nothing written on it. No card, no ribbon. Just the feeling that it is meant for you. And the person who gives it to you says only this. Everything you are searching for is inside. You hold the box in your hands. It feels light. Lighter than it should. Like it is filled with air. You ask, is it a joke? They shake their head. Number, it is real. You ask, is it metaphorical? Is this about some life lesson? They only smile and walk away. Now you are alone. Just you and the box. You sit with it. Turn it over. Shake it gently. There is no sound. But you begin to feel something strange. The more you hold it, the more you begin to believe it could be true. That maybe this simple box really does contain the answers. The peace. The clarity. The version of you you have been trying to become. And so you wait. You do not open it immediately. You think maybe it should be done carefully, maybe with ceremony, maybe it should be opened in the right mood, in the right place. You take it home. You place it on a shelf. You glance at it each day. You make space around it, light candles near it. You tell yourself, when I am ready, I will open it. Time passes, days, maybe weeks. You begin to speak to it, silently, asking it to change you. Asking it to show you who you really are. And finally, one evening, you sit down with steady hands and lift the lid. It is empty. Nothing. No letter. No key. No symbol. Just space. Just the quiet inside a box that was always light because there was nothing in it. You stare into the emptiness. At first you laugh. You think maybe you misunderstood. Maybe this was never about what was inside. Maybe it was about what you would bring to it. But the longer you stare, the more you feel something shift inside you. Not just confusion, but something deeper, something uncomfortable. You begin to ask yourself the question that never crossed your mind. Why did I believe it held anything at all? Why did I wait? Why did I assign meaning before I knew what was true? And now, the paradox begins. The box was always empty, but because you were told it had meaning, you gave it your time, your hope, your thoughts. You shaped your days around it. You adjusted your emotions because of it. The box changed you, not because of what it held, but because of what you believed about it. So now you wonder, was the change still real? Was the journey toward the box still valid? If the destination is empty, but the path to it transforms you, does the box still matter? You think of the promises you once gave yourself, the things you said would bring happiness, a new job, a certain number, a relationship, a version of your body, a number of followers, a quiet moment of respect, and when some of them came, they felt like this box, silent, still, not empty in form, but empty in feeling. You think of all the boxes you chased, some you never opened, some you did. Some stayed sealed forever, glowing in your mind as mysterious and powerful, only because you never dared to peek inside and see they were just like this one. And now you understand something difficult, that the box was never about the contents. It was about the story you told yourself, about what it might be. The value was never real. It was imagined. But the impact was not. The impact was real. You carried that box like a sacred thing. You protected it. You hoped through it. You projected everything onto it. And now that it is open and empty, something inside you feels lighter, but also uncertain. Because if this box was nothing, what else might be? What other dreams are empty, only because you have not yet tested them? What beliefs are holding you in place because you fear they might vanish once examined? And then the paradox flips again. Maybe the box is not empty. Maybe it holds exactly what it was supposed to hold, nothing. Because nothing is what you need to fill with yourself, with your own presence, your own meaning, your own voice. You realize now, the box is a mirror, not of your face, but of your willingness to wait for something outside you to change what is already inside. You close the box. You place it back on the shelf. But now, not as something sacred, just as a reminder that you once believed in something invisible, and it made you act, and feel, and reflect. And maybe that is not failure. Maybe that is the point. So, as you fall asleep tonight, think of the boxes you still carry, the ones that feel heavy, but hold only your hopes, the ones you protect without ever opening, the ones you fear will show you nothing at all. Ask yourself gently, if I opened them and they were empty, would I still be glad I looked? Would I still learn something about what I need? Would I finally stop waiting? Let the answer settle without noise. Let the quiet be enough. Let the emptiness show you it is not something to be feared. Sometimes it is just space. And space can hold whatever meaning you are ready to place inside it. And maybe, when you wake, the box will still be there, but you will no longer be waiting on it to give you something, because you will have already found what you were looking for in the space it left behind. And that's it. Hope you're in peace. Just consider subscribing, because sleep matters. Just then, stress scatters, and nothing else matters, right? Peace out.